Having to work with an arrogant person in the morning was making my job difficult. Every day, my coworkers and I put up with the abusive behavior of our supervisor, an elite manager who had graduated from a prestigious university. One day, I reached my limit and decided to confront her. She sneered, "You should talk to your bosses or something. I'm one of the elites, nobody's going to listen to a dropout like you." She seemed so sure of herself, but one word from the company president, who happened to be passing by, completely changed her attitude. "My name is Daniel Smith. I started working as a salesperson for a subsidiary of a big company right after high school. My father had been hurt in a motorcycle accident and couldn't work anymore, so I got this job to support my family. I was able to get the job thanks to my father's connections with the company. The people here got along well, and I enjoyed my work. My boss was nice, and my coworkers were easy to get along with, so I didn't usually have much to worry about. But today, I felt a little down." "Hey, Smith, isn't today the meeting with the head office?" my colleague asked. "Yes, it is," I replied. "That means she's coming here, right? I wish I could have taken the day off," he said. "Don't worry about it," I replied. "You don't have to deal with her directly." But honestly, I was feeling down, too. Just then, we heard her voice. Why weren't any employees waiting at the entrance for me? They knew I was coming, and this is how they react? She demanded angrily. My coworker muttered something and quickly left, avoiding her. The woman giving orders was Manager Jones. She regularly visited from the headquarters for meetings. She had graduated from a prestigious university and was hired directly into management, but she was arrogant and always looked down on us employees from the subsidiary. "Typical, uneducated and incompetent as usual," she said, clearly annoyed. "You all make me look bad. Let's start this meeting quickly. I don't want to spend any more time with you people than I have to." I apologized politely. "Sorry, ma'am, but we're still waiting for one more person who's on the way." "You're going to make me wait?" she snapped. "I came all the way here from headquarters, and you people aren't even ready?" "You arrived 20 minutes early, ma'am," I said, though I tried to keep my tone respectful, but I was frustrated. She was always so unreasonable, and yet, because she was elite, we felt we couldn't stand up to her. We all talked about her behavior among ourselves at the subsidiary, but in the end, we always endured it without saying anything to her. Then, one morning, as I was driving to work, I prepared myself to face another difficult day. I noticed an elderly woman crouched in distress in the middle of the road. It was clearly an emergency, but most people around just pretended not to see her, not wanting to get involved. I rushed over and asked, "Are you okay, ma'am?" But she didn't respond. Her breathing was labored, and she couldn't speak clearly. I quickly took out my phone and called 911. When the ambulance arrived, I went with her to the hospital. A nurse soon told me, "It's okay for you to go home. We'll take care of her until her family arrives." I had already informed my company that I'd be late, and I wanted to make sure she was okay, so I stayed until her family arrived. Thankfully, she wasn't in any serious danger and was able to leave the hospital a few days later. A few weeks later, I unexpectedly received a transfer order to the headquarters branch. It was a direct order from the company president. I wasn't sure if I should go, but my coworker said, "This shows they noticed your hard work. Go and do your best." Their encouragement helped me decide to accept the transfer. My first day at headquarters was busy. I wanted to introduce myself to each department. On my way, I saw the chief in the hallway and hurried to greet her, but she looked at me with disgust. "What are you doing here?" she said. "Aren't you a little out of place?" "Good morning, Chief. I've been assigned here," I replied. "Oh, you're being relocated here? What are they thinking?" She ignored my greeting and went on. "Having to breathe the same air as an uneducated idiot like you in the morning is going to ruin my whole day." I tried to stay polite. "Chief, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way." "Oh, stop talking. Stay out of my way. I'm busy." She waved me off like I was an annoying fly, clearly not interested in listening. Realizing it was pointless to keep trying, I gave up and returned to work. When I returned to the floor where the chief worked, I overheard her angrily scolding one of her employees. "You're incompetent. Why can't you handle something as simple as this? Even a new hire could do this," she snapped. "I'm sorry," the employee mumbled, clearly upset about the mistake he'd made. He clenched his fists, bowed his head, and took the harsh words in silence. "If this is the best you can do, I'd rather have someone else working for me. You're useless to me now. Clean out your desk and get out of my way," she continued, before finally noticing me. Our eyes met, and her face twisted with anger. What are you doing back here? Didn't I tell you to stay out of my way this morning? She demanded. Please, calm down, Chief. I actually need to talk to you today, I said, trying to keep things respectful. Stop talking. I don't have time for incompetent people like you. She stormed off, slamming the door behind her. After she left, I approached the employee who had just been yelled at. He flinched at the sound of the door slamming. Is that typical of the chief? I asked. It happens every day, he replied with frustration. She constantly disrespects me. Careful, keep your voice down, or she'll hear you, I said, worried she might come back and give him an even harder time. I did my best to calm him down. I've been putting up with this for a long time, but I can't take it anymore, the employee said, stumbling to his desk. He pulled out a white envelope from a drawer. Is that a resignation letter? I asked. Yes, he replied. I've been thinking about this for a while. My previous job was peaceful and fulfilling, but ever since the chief arrived, this place has become unbearable. He looked sadly at his desk, covered in notes and documents. It was clear he had once loved his job and worked hard. I understand how you feel, I told him, but doesn't it bother you to see all your hard work wasted because of one difficult manager? Of course it does, he sighed. I've worked hard here and been here longer than she has, but it's just. I could see his frustration and sadness. He was struggling, with nowhere for his emotions to go. The chief might think that way, but there are people here who trust and rely on you. Why don't you stay a little longer, for them? Stay a little longer? He asked, surprised. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. It's not you who should have to quit. Leaving him in surprise, I went to find the chief. I couldn't stand by while more employees were mistreated. I quickly tracked her down in the break room, where she was drinking tea. Excuse me, I said. She looked annoyed as she noticed me. Why are you still here? You're as persistent as a fly. I'm on a break, leave me alone. The chief looked tired, probably from all the yelling. I took a deep breath and said, Chief, I'm going to conduct a formal investigation into your treatment of the employees here. If necessary, there will be consequences. She looked shocked. What are you talking about? Are you trying to play hero and defend those incompetents? No, I'm not, I replied calmly. Fine, go tell your bosses. Then, I'm an elite, with the support of my superiors. Nobody's going to listen to a dropout like you from the subsidiary, she sneered. Just then, a man appeared from the other side of the room. Smith, how are things going for you? It was the president. I'm doing my best, thanks to you, sir, I replied. The chief immediately changed her tone. Hello, President, what a pleasant surprise. The president smiled. I'm glad to hear things are going well. Have you met the new branch manager? What, new branch manager? The chief asked, looking completely confused. The president looked at the chief with surprise. He's standing right in front of you. Haven't you been briefed? The chief laughed, assuming he was joking. This employee from a subsidiary? You must be kidding, boss. But the president's expression turned serious. I'm not joking. He is now the branch manager of this office. Don't be disrespectful by calling him incompetent. The chief's face turned pale, and she looked as if she might faint. I looked at her calmly. I tried to tell you earlier, but you ignored me. I've already informed the other departments. She muttered in shock, unable to believe it. An uneducated, incompetent. The president sighed, clearly disappointed in her. He began to explain. Let me tell you a little about this incompetent you've been mistreating. He turned to the chief. This branch manager's father founded this business. However, after his father was injured in a car accident, I stepped in to help run things. The chief was speechless. He's the former president's son? Yes, the president confirmed. I've been asking him to come to headquarters for a while, but he's always preferred his role at the subsidiary. The chief, completely rattled, asked, Then, why did you suddenly come here now? She'd momentarily forgotten she was speaking in front of the president. He looked shocked to see this side of her, as she usually acted respectfully around him. The president continued, I strongly urged him to transfer here. He's my mother's lifesaver. Your mother? The chief stammered. Yes, a few weeks ago, when an elderly woman was struggling in the middle of the road, he was the only one who stopped to help her. He called an ambulance and stayed with her until the family arrived, even though everyone else just walked by. The chief's mouth dropped open in disbelief. The president nodded. I didn't want him to stay buried in a subsidiary when he deserves so much more. That's why I made him the branch manager here. The chief, finally understanding the situation, looked completely defeated. On the day I was appointed branch manager, I had doubts about whether I was ready for the role. I had only worked at a subsidiary, and suddenly, I was being asked to lead a branch of the main office. But after hearing from the president and receiving my father's call asking me to support the company he had helped build, I made up my mind to accept. The president explained to the chief, "Smith is now branch manager, so show him respect and pay close attention to what he says." Then, he left the room. I turned to the chief and said, "You've been mistreating not just the employees from subsidiaries, but also your direct subordinates. I know what it's like to be looked down on because of my education level. Now that I'm branch manager, I can't overlook this anymore. Be prepared for the consequences." The chief sank to the floor and began to cry, her pride severely wounded. She had always looked down on me, only to find herself in a lower position. My difficult days were over. The next day, we began an investigation into the chief's behavior. After interviewing various employees, many reported the harsh comments and actions she had directed at them. Due to her misconduct, the chief was disciplined and left the company without a word. Her high self-esteem had taken a big hit. With her position now vacant, the president promoted the employee she had once yelled at to be the new chief. He had been with the company for many years, was dedicated to his work, and understood firsthand what it was like to be treated unfairly. I felt confident he would make a great leader who respected his team. As for me, I aimed to lead by listening to employees. I held regular meetings to hear their opinions, organized training for those in higher positions to help them become better leaders, and tried to stay connected with everyone, just as I had at the subsidiary. Thanks to these efforts, the company's atmosphere improved, and it became a much better place to work, reminding me of the warm, collaborative environment I had enjoyed at the subsidiary. "Smith, I'm sorry about what happened with Jones, but thanks to you, the company is doing very well," the president said. Sometime later, he invited me to his office for coffee to discuss the company's progress. "I'm getting older," he said thoughtfully. "Eventually, I'd like you to succeed me as president." "With all respect, Mr. President, I don't see myself becoming president," I replied. He looked surprised. "Why, your father would have wanted this too. I want to work alongside the employees, supporting the company and being close to the customers. It'd be hard to do that if I were president." The president looked at me for a moment, then laughed. "You're a unique one, Smith. Most people would jump at this offer." "Maybe I'm a bit unusual," I admitted. "No, it's good," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "That's exactly the kind of person we need here." Then he added, "You have a meeting coming up, right? Go on, keep up the good work."
I stared at my husband's phone, my fingers trembling as they hovered over the screen. 23 years of marriage, and here I was, invading his privacy like a common thief. The house felt too quiet, too still, as if holding its breath along with me. "Just put it down, Cora," I whispered to myself. But I couldn't. Not after seeing that notification flash across his screen while he showered. Not after weeks of late nights and vague explanations. The message preview taunted me, "Hannah, I miss you already." Last night was. My thumb pressed the home button before I could stop myself. No password required. Ben had never bothered changing it from our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. The full message materialized, "I miss you already." Last night was perfect. Can't wait to feel your arms around me again. Remember, delete these messages. My stomach lurched. The phone slipped from my grasp, landing face down on our kitchen counter. The same counter where Ben had surprised me with breakfast just last weekend, kissing my neck while I pretended to complain about the mess he'd made. The shower upstairs stopped running. I had maybe 2 minutes before he came down. I picked up the phone again, my hands steadier now. Anger has a way of clearing your vision. I scrolled through their conversation history, taking screenshots and sending them to myself. Each message was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. Getting tired of sneaking around. Soon, baby. I promise. You make me feel alive. Hannah. His former intern. The bright young thing who'd brought coffee to our company Christmas party last year. She couldn't be more than 22. Footsteps on the stairs. I placed his phone exactly where I'd found it and turned to the sink, running water over dishes that were already clean. "Morning, honey." Ben's voice was cheerful as he entered the kitchen. He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, just like he always did. His familiar cologne made me want to vomit. "Morning." I kept scrubbing the spotless plate. "Good shower?" "Perfect. Though I'm running late." He reached past me for his phone. "Big meeting today." I watched his reflection in the window above the sink. Watched him check his messages, his expression never changing. Such a practiced liar. "Will you be home for dinner?" I asked, knowing the answer. "Probably not. The Henderson project is in its final stages." He kissed my cheek. "Don't wait up." The Henderson project. Right. I wondered if that's what he called her when talking to his friends. "The boys are coming home this weekend," I said. "Evan's bringing his new girlfriend." "That's great." He was already heading for the door, attention fixed on his phone. "We'll catch up tonight." The front door closed. His car started. And just like that, I was alone with the knowledge that my life was imploding. I dried my hands and pulled out my own phone, looking at the screenshots I'd taken. My fingers hovered over Martha's number. My sister would know what to do. But I couldn't call her. Not yet. This felt too raw, too personal. Instead, I walked to our bedroom and opened Ben's closet. The familiar scent of his clothes hit me, and for a moment, I was tempted to bury my face in them and pretend this was all a nightmare. But there, on his navy suit jacket, the one he'd worn last night, was a long blonde hair. Hannah's signature platinum shade. I plucked it off carefully and placed it in an envelope. First piece of evidence secured. My hands weren't shaking anymore. In fact, they were perfectly steady as I reached for a suitcase on the top shelf. Let him have his Henderson project tonight. I had some planning of my own to do. The boys arrived home from college that weekend, bringing with them the familiar chaos of duffel bags and dirty laundry. I watched them from the kitchen window as they pulled into the driveway. Evan's beat-up Civic followed by Lucas's skateboard scraping against the pavement. My hands gripped the counter's edge, steadying myself for what was about to become the performance of my lifetime. "Mom!" Lucas burst through the door first, all gangly limbs and floppy hair. "Where's Dad?" "I need him to look at my laptop. It's making this weird noise." "Working late," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "Henderson project." Evan appeared behind his brother, eyes narrowing slightly. He'd always been more perceptive. "Again?" "That's the third weekend this month." I busied myself with the pasta sauce I'd been stirring. "You know how these final stages can be." "Right." Evan dropped his bag by the door. "Because real estate development requires so many late-night meetings." The wooden spoon clattered against the pot. "Evan." "I'm just saying." He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Something's different." "You're different." Lucas looked between us, confusion clouding his features. "What's going on?" "Nothing," I said, too quickly. "Everything's fine." "Evan, where's this girlfriend we're supposed to meet?" "She couldn't make it." His eyes didn't leave my face. "Had a family thing." The front door opened again, and Ben's voice called out, "Hello? Anyone home?" My stomach clenched. He wasn't supposed to be here tonight. I'd counted on having more time to prepare, to perfect my act. In the kitchen, I called back, forcing brightness into my voice. "Look who's home." Ben appeared, wearing the same suit from this morning, his tie loosened. No lipstick stains this time. He must be getting better at cleaning up after himself. "My boys." He embraced them both, and I watched their faces carefully. Lucas melted into the hug, but Evan remained stiff, his jaw tight. Thought you had work, Evan said. Wrapped up early. Couldn't miss family dinner. Ben's smile was perfect, practiced. He turned to me. Something smells amazing, honey. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The sauce bubbled, reminding me of the anger simmering just beneath my surface. Actually, Evan said, I wanted to talk to you both about something. He pulled out his phone. I ran into Uncle James at the coffee shop near campus last week. He mentioned seeing you, Dad, at that new restaurant downtown. Said you were having quite the business dinner. The kitchen went silent. Ben's smile didn't waver, but I saw his hand twitch slightly. Must have been someone else, Ben said smoothly. I haven't been to any new restaurants lately. Weird. Evan scrolled through his phone. Because he sent me a picture. Said he was going to forward it to you both, but I guess he forgot. My heart raced. I hadn't known about this. Hadn't planned for it. Let me see, Lucas said, reaching for the phone. No! Ben and I spoke simultaneously, then looked at each other. Lucas stepped back, hurt flashing across his face. What's going on? Why are you both acting so weird? Your father's tired, I said, switching off the stove. And dinner's ready. Why don't we all just... Stop it, Mom. Evan's voice cracked. Stop pretending everything's okay when it's not. We're not kids anymore. Ben moved toward him. Son. Don't. Evan backed away. Don't pretend you care about this family when you're out there. Enough. I slammed my hand on the counter. They all jumped. Evan, help Lucas set the table. Ben, a word in the study. Now. As I followed Ben down the hallway, I caught Evan's eye. The pain there, the betrayal, it mirrored my own. But beneath it was something else, determination. In that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one planning revenge. The question was, whose would come first? Martha's garden always smelled like lavender and secrets. I sat at her wrought iron patio table, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The email I'd just received from Hannah's doctor's office, forwarded to me by accident thanks to Ben's shared email account, burned in my mind like a brand. 12 weeks, I said, my voice hollow. She's 12 weeks pregnant. Martha set down her coffee cup with enough force to crack china. That little. Don't. I pressed my fingers to my temples. I can't even process this yet. Have you told the boys? God, no. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Evan's already suspicious enough. And Lucas. He still idolizes his father. Martha reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. You need to confront Ben. And say what? Congratulations on your new family? Say whatever you need to say to get your share of the assets before he tries hiding them. She squeezed my hand. I've seen this before, Cora. Men like Ben, they... My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas, Mom, come home. Something's wrong with Evan. I have to go. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. The boys. I'm coming with you. We found them in the driveway. Evan was pacing, his hands covered in red paint. Lucas stood by his car, pale and shaking. What happened? I demanded. Show her, Lucas said quietly. Evan pointed to Ben's precious Mercedes, now adorned with foot-high letters across the hood, cheater. Jesus, Evan. Martha whispered. I saw them, he spat. Dad and that intern. At Riverside Park. They didn't see me, but I saw everything. His voice cracked. He had his hands all over her. She can't be much older than me. The pregnancy revelation burned in my throat. I swallowed it back. Go inside, both of you. Mom. Now. They went, leaving Martha and me staring at the ruined car. The paint was still wet, dripping down like blood. He'll be home soon, I said. Good. Martha's voice was steel. Let him see it. I should clean it off. Why? To protect him? From what? The consequences of his own actions. Before I could answer, Ben's company SUV turned into the driveway. He slammed on the brakes, staring through the windshield at his defaced Mercedes. What the hell? He was out of the car before it fully stopped. What happened to my car? Evan saw you today, I said quietly. At Riverside Park. The color drained from his face. Cora, I can explain. Can you explain this too? I held up my phone, showing him the doctor's email. 12 weeks, Ben. Were you ever going to tell me? He stepped back, glancing between Martha and me. That was meant to be private. Private? Martha advanced on him. Like screwing your intern in public parks is private? Stay out of this, Martha. Or what? You'll ruin her life too? The front door opened. Evan stood there, Lucas behind him, both watching with identical expressions of disgust. Boys, Ben started. Don't. Evan's voice shook. Don't pretend you care about us now. Of course I care. You're my sons. And what about the new one? The words escaped before I could stop them. Will you care about that one too? Or will you abandon it like you're abandoning us? Lucas made a small, wounded sound. What? Your father's girlfriend is pregnant, I said, watching Ben flinch. Apparently we're all going to be one big happy family. That's not. Ben reached for me. Cora, please. We can work this out. I stepped back. No, we can't. Because this isn't just about me anymore. This is about our sons watching their father throw away 23 years of marriage for someone barely older than they are. This is about you choosing your ego over your family. Mom, Lucas whispered. What are we going to do? I looked at my youngest son, seeing the child he used to be overlaid with the man he was becoming. Then at Evan, straight-backed and fierce in his righteousness. Finally at Ben, who couldn't even meet my eyes anymore. We're going to do what we should have done weeks ago, I said. We're going to stop pretending. I turned to Martha. Call your lawyer friend. The one who handled your divorce. Cora, don't, Ben started. The time for negotiations is over, I cut him off. You made your choice at Riverside Park. Now I'm making mine. Dr. Phillips's office smelled like artificial lavender and judgment. I sat rigid in the leather chair, staring at the divorce papers spread across her desk while she scribbled notes about my adjustment process. Have you slept at all this week, Cora? I traced the edge of Ben's financial disclosure form. 3 separate bank accounts I'd never known about. Sleep isn't really a priority right now. Your sister mentioned the incident with your son and the car. She set down her pen. How are you handling the boys' reactions? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. About Ben. And the money. Hannah. My fingers trembled as I showed Dr. Phillips the message. How's that for handling things? What are you thinking of doing? I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Meeting her. Is that wise? Wise stopped being relevant the moment my husband knocked up someone younger than his vintage wine collection. I stood up, gathering the papers. Thank you for your time, Dr. Phillips, but I need to. Sit down, Cora. Something in her tone made me pause. "You're planning something," she said. "I can see it in your eyes." The same look I saw in my sister's face before she destroyed her ex-husband's life and ended up in jail for it. "I'm not. You're a teacher. A mother. Think about what you're risking." My laugh came out harsh. "I already lost everything that mattered." "Have you? Your sons still need you. Your career." Another buzz from my phone. "Hannah again, the Henderson project isn't what you think. He's been lying to everyone. I have to go." I reached for my bag. "Cora, wait." Dr. Phillips handed me her card. "Before you do anything permanent, call me. Day or night." I nodded, already heading for the door. In the parking lot, I dialed Martha's number. "You're not seriously meeting her," Martha said when I told her. "At the coffee shop on 5th. Public place, security cameras. It's a trap. She's trying to. She's carrying my husband's child while apparently knowing something that could ruin him." I started my car. "I need to know what she knows." "Then I'm coming with you." "No." I pulled onto the street. "I need you to do something else. Go to the house. The boys are with Ben for their weekly dinner. I need you to check his home office." "What am I looking for?" "The Henderson Project files. The real ones, not the fake set he keeps on his desk. Check the safe behind the Monet print." "How do you know?" 23 years of marriage teaches you things." I paused at a red light. "The combination is Lucas's birthday. Ben always did favor the quiet one." "Cora." Martha's voice softened. "Be careful. Women like Hannah are young, beautiful, pregnant, are desperate. And desperate people are dangerous." The coffee shop came into view. Through the window, I could see Hannah already seated, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. She looked up, meeting my eyes through the glass. "I have to go." "Wait," Martha said quickly. "There's something else you should know." I did some digging. Hannah's been through this before. My hand froze on the car door. "What?" 2 years ago. Different company, different married executive. She claimed pregnancy then too, but after she drained his accounts, she disappeared. The pieces clicked into place. And the pregnancy? Never existed. "Cora, she's running a con, and Ben is the mark." I watched Hannah check her phone, her free hand still curved around her non-existent baby bump. "Keep looking through his office. I need to have a little chat with my husband's pregnant girlfriend." I ended the call and stepped out of the car, my teacher's smile firmly in place. Hannah waved, all innocent eyes, and practiced vulnerability. Two could play at that game. Time to find out who is better at manipulation, the seasoned wife or the professional con artist. The Henderson Project files lay scattered across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Martha stood beside me, her face pale as we pieced together what Ben had been hiding. "He's been embezzling," I whispered, running my finger down a column of numbers that didn't add up. "Using the project as cover. And Hannah knows." Martha picked up another document. "That's why she chose him." My phone buzzed with a text from Evan, "Dad's on his way over. He knows you took the files." I started gathering the papers. "How much time?" 10 minutes, maybe less." Martha grabbed her keys. "I'll take copies to my lawyer friend." "No." I pulled out my phone, snapping photos of each page. "We need leverage, not legal action." "Not yet." The front door slammed open. Ben stormed in, his face twisted with rage. "Where are they?" I met his eyes across the kitchen. Where's Hannah? Shouldn't she be here for this conversation? Don't play games, Cora. Those files are company property. Funny. I held up a bank statement. I don't remember offshore accounts being part of real estate development. He lunged for the papers. Martha stepped between us, but I waved her off. It's fine, I said, my voice steady. Let him take them. I already have what I need. Ben froze. What does that mean? It means I had coffee with Hannah yesterday. I watched his face carefully. She's quite the actress, isn't she? The pregnancy, the devoted girlfriend act. Tell me, did you know about the executive in Seattle? The one she bled dry last year? Color drained from his face. You're lying. Am I? Check your accounts, Ben. The ones you thought I didn't know about. See how much is left. He grabbed his phone, fingers trembling as he pulled up his banking app. The sound he made was almost inhuman. She's gone, isn't she? I asked softly. With everything. You knew. He advanced on me. You knew and you let her. Dad, stop. Evan appeared in the doorway, Lucas behind him. Both looked horrified. Your mother destroyed everything, Ben snarled. I destroyed nothing, I cut in. I just waited. Watched. Like I've been doing for months, while you threw away our family for someone who saw you as nothing but a mark. The boys' college funds, he whispered. Our savings. Our safe. I pulled out another set of papers. I moved them weeks ago. Right after I found Hannah's text messages. Lucas stepped forward. Mom, what's happening? Your father's girlfriend wasn't pregnant, Martha explained gently. She was a con artist who just emptied every account she had access to, I finished. Including the Henderson Project funds. How will you explain that to the board, Ben? He sank into a chair, head in his hands. I'll be arrested. Probably. I gathered the remaining files. Unless. His head snapped up. Unless what? Unless you sign these. I pulled out divorce papers. Full custody. The house. Half your legitimate assets. In return, these files disappear. That's blackmail, he whispered. That's justice. Evan moved to stand beside me. Sign them, Dad. Ben looked at our sons, Evan's fierce protectiveness, Lucas's quiet disappointment. Then at me, seeing perhaps for the first time the woman who'd been watching, waiting, planning while he destroyed everything we'd built. You've changed, he said. No. I slid the papers toward him. I just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. Your turn to make a choice. Martha handed him a pen. The only sound in the kitchen was the scratch of ink as Ben Mitchell signed away his family to save himself. I felt nothing watching him leave. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just a hollow certainty that this wasn't over. Hannah might have taken his money, but I'd taken something far more valuable, his power to hurt us again. Mom? Lucas touched my arm. Are you okay? I looked at my sons, then at Martha, seeing the strength we'd found together. No, I said honestly. But I will be. We all will be. The police lights painted my front yard in alternating red and blue. I stood in the doorway, watching two officers lead Ben to their cruiser while neighbors peered from behind curtains. Not exactly how I'd planned this evening to go. He tried to kill me, Hannah's voice crackled through the officer's radio. I have proof. Recordings, messages, everything. Martha gripped my arm. She planned this. Of course she did. I watched Ben's head disappear into the police car. She needed a clean escape. The detective who'd been questioning me closed his notebook. Mrs. Mitchell, given your husband's recent behavior and the evidence Miss Walker provided, we'll need you to come down to the station. For what? Evan stepped forward, protective. Standard procedure. The detective's eyes were cold. Especially given the financial documents we found in your mother's possession. My stomach dropped. The Henderson files. I'd forgotten to move them after Ben signed the divorce papers. I'll call our lawyer, Martha whispered. No time. I grabbed my coat. Lucas, stay with your aunt. Evan. I'm coming with you. The drive to the station was silent. In the harsh fluorescent lights of the interview room, Detective Sanders laid out photos of the files, bank statements, and a series of text messages I'd never seen before. Hannah Walker claims you orchestrated this entire situation, he said. That you manipulated her into helping expose your husband's crimes, then threatened to frame her if she didn't leave town. I almost laughed. That's ridiculous. Is it? He pushed forward a printed email. This message suggests you knew about the embezzlement months ago, but waited to report it. Why? I was protecting my family. Or building a case for divorce while allowing criminal activity to continue. He leaned forward. That's conspiracy, Mrs. Mitchell. The room suddenly felt too small. Through the window, I could see Evan pacing in the hallway, looking younger than his 19 years. Hannah Walker has provided detailed records of your conversations, Sanders continued. Including your meeting at the coffee shop where you allegedly threatened her. She's lying. Maybe. But combined with these files, your recent financial transactions, and your son's vandalism of your husband's car. He spread his hands. It doesn't look good. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sorry, Cora. Had to protect myself. Nothing personal. H. Another buzz. Martha, Ben's being released. Hannah dropped the assault charges. She's gone. Of course. She'd gotten what she wanted, the money, the clean escape, and me left holding the evidence of Ben's crimes. Perfect setup. Mrs. Mitchell? Sanders was waiting. I want my lawyer. That's your right. He gathered the files. But consider this, your husband's claiming you orchestrated everything. The theft, the false pregnancy story, all of it. With Hannah gone, it's your word against his. Through the window, I watched Ben walk past, escorted by his lawyer. He didn't look at me, but I saw the slight smile on his face. He'd found his way out, by making me the villain of the story. Mom? Evan's voice cracked as they led me to a holding cell. What do we do? I thought of the garden I'd planted when we first moved into our house. How sometimes you had to burn everything down to make way for new growth. Call Dr. Phillips, I said. Her card is in my wallet. Tell her I'm ready to talk about what really happened. But that means everything comes out. The affair, the embezzlement, Hannah's past cons. All of it. Dad will go to prison. So might I. I touched his face through the bars. But sometimes the truth is worth the price. The cell door clanged shut. Through the small window, I could see the night sky, dark and endless. Somewhere out there, Hannah was probably boarding a plane with my husband's money, thinking she'd won. She didn't understand. Some victories aren't about money or escape. Sometimes they're about burning everything down and standing in the ashes, finally free to rebuild. I sat on the narrow bed, closed my eyes, and began planning my next move. The game wasn't over. It was just changing rules. Dr. Phillips's testimony echoed through the courtroom like a death knell. Mrs. Mitchell came to me concerned about her husband's financial improprieties months before the arrest. She was gathering evidence to protect her family, not conspire with Miss Walker. I watched Ben's face from across the room, his perfect mask finally cracking as his lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. "And these sessions," the prosecutor continued, "did Mrs. Mitchell ever mention planning to frame her husband?" No. She was focused on documenting the truth, nothing more. The truth. Such a simple word for something that had destroyed everything I'd known. The courthouse doors burst open. Martha rushed in, clutching her phone. They found her. The judge's gavel cracked against wood. "Order! Mrs. Mitchell's sister, this is highly irregular." "Your Honor," my lawyer interrupted, "we've just received crucial evidence. Hannah Walker has been located in Singapore." Ben stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," I said quietly. "Inevitable." "Did you really think she'd stop at just one mark?" The prosecutor approached the bench with Martha's phone. A video played on the screen, Hannah, in a hotel room, counting stacks of cash while speaking to someone off camera. The Henderson Project was perfect, her voice rang clear. Mitchell was so desperate to hide the embezzlement, he never questioned anything. His wife, though. Hannah laughed. She was smarter than expected. Almost ruined everything. Ben's face went ash white. "Turn it off." "Can't handle the truth?" Evan called from the gallery. "About how she played you." "Order!" The judge's gavel cracked again. "Mr. Mitchell, sit down." The video continued. Hannah detailed every transaction, every manipulation. How she'd used Ben's guilt over the affair to access company accounts. How she'd planned to frame me all along. "And the pregnancy?" the off-camera voice asked. Hannah's laugh turned cruel. "Please. Men like Ben Mitchell are all the same. Wave a baby in front of them and they'll sign anything." The courtroom erupted. Through the chaos, I watched my husband, the man I'd spent 23 years loving, crumble into himself as the full weight of his choices crashed down. "Your Honor," Ben's lawyer started. "Save it, Ben," cut him off. He stood, shoulders slumped. "I want to change my plea." "Ben, don't. It's over." He turned to face me. "You knew, didn't you? That she'd try this again somewhere else. That someone would eventually catch her. I knew she'd get greedy." I met his eyes. "Just like I knew you'd choose her over us until it was too late." "The court will recess," the judge announced. 1 hour. In the hallway, Evan and Lucas flanked me like guards. Martha showed me the rest of the evidence, Hannah's pattern across 3 countries, 5 executives, millions in stolen funds. "Singapore authorities are moving in now," she said. "She'll never see it coming." "Just like Dad," Lucas muttered. Ben approached us, escorted by his lawyer. "Cora, please. We can still." "Still what?" Evan stepped forward. "Pretend you didn't choose her over us? Over Mom?" "I was wrong." Ben's voice cracked. "About everything." "Yes," I said simply. "You were." The bailiff called us back in. Before entering, I turned to Ben one last time. "You know what the difference is between Hannah and me? She wanted revenge. I just wanted the truth. And now? Now I want peace." I straightened my spine. "The boys and I are moving to the coast. Starting fresh. You should plead guilty, Ben. It's the only way they'll ever forgive you." Inside the courtroom, I took my seat as Ben approached the bench. The truth had cost us everything we'd built together. But watching him finally face his choices, I realized something: sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself again. The judge called for order, and Ben spoke the words that would end our shared life forever. I closed my eyes, feeling not triumph, but relief. The game was over. We had all lost something, but at least now we could stop pretending. The coastal wind carried the scent of salt and new beginnings as I planted the last rosebush in our garden. Behind me, the sound of Evan's guitar drifted from the deck of our new home, mixing with Lucas's quiet humming. My phone buzzed. Martha's text was brief: Hannah caught. Singapore authorities found her starting the same scam with a tech CEO. I didn't respond. Instead, I pressed my hands deeper into the soil, feeling its cool dampness against my skin. Some endings didn't need acknowledgement. Mom? Lucas appeared beside me, holding a letter. This came for you. Dad's handwriting. The envelope was prison-stamped, heavy with words I wasn't sure I wanted to read. What do you think? Should we open it together? He sat cross-legged in the grass, reminding me of when he was small enough to help me plant marigolds. Only if you want to. Evan joined us, setting his guitar aside. Whatever's in there won't change anything. No, I agreed, breaking the seal. But maybe it needs to be heard anyway. Ben's letter was short, his usually precise handwriting shaky. Cora. The prosecutor showed me Hannah's complete record today. 7 men before me. All of us thinking we were special, different. But you were the only one who saw through her. The only one strong enough to stand your ground. I keep thinking about that garden you always wanted by the coast. The one I said was impractical because of the salt air. Guess you proved me wrong about that too. The boys won't answer my calls. I don't blame them. Just tell them I finally understand what I threw away. Ben. Lucas leaned against my shoulder. Are you okay? Actually, yes. I folded the letter, tucking it under a stone in the garden. Some things need to stay buried so others can grow. Like your impossible coastal garden? Evan smiled slightly. Exactly. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees. Speaking of which, help me with these last few plants? We worked in comfortable silence, 3 pairs of hands in the earth, building something new from the ashes of what we'd lost. The roses would struggle at first against the salt air, but they'd adapt. Grow stronger. Just like we had. Martha's car pulled into the driveway. She emerged carrying grocery bags and a familiar-looking file. The last of the Henderson Project documents, she announced. All evidence processed and filed away. Case closed. Burn it, I said, surprising myself. We don't need it anymore. Evan looked up sharply. But what if? What if nothing? I took the file, walked to our fire pit, and struck a match. Some victories aren't about keeping proof. They're about choosing to let go. We watched the papers curl and blacken, years of lies and manipulation turning to ash in the coastal breeze. Lucas sketched the scene in his notebook, while Evan strummed a quiet melody that sounded like healing. The roses will bloom by spring, Martha observed, settling into a deck chair. Maybe. I smiled, thinking of Ben's letter under its garden stone. But that's not why I planted them. No? I planted them because everyone said they wouldn't survive here. That it was impossible. I looked at my sons, these beautiful, resilient young men who'd weathered the storm with me. Sometimes proving something's possible is more important than making it easy. The sun began to set over the water, painting the sky in colors no revenge could match. Tomorrow, I'd return to my classroom, teaching literature to students who'd never know how their teacher had rewritten her own story. My sons would continue healing, creating art and music from their pain. And somewhere in a prison cell, Ben would read about Hannah's arrest and finally understand that some betrayals come with built-in justice. But tonight, we sat in our impossible garden, watching the roses sway in the salt air, proving that broken things could be beautiful if you planted them in the right soil. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something better, a future that belonged entirely to me.
The photograph stared back at me from my laptop screen, mocking everything I thought I knew about my life. My husband Nathan, the father of my children, down on one knee in front of a woman who wasn't me. The image had appeared in my social media feed, shared by a mutual friend who clearly had no idea what they were exposing. I'm Brooke, and until 30 seconds ago, I was just another suburban mom juggling a photography career with raising 2 kids. Now I'm someone else entirely. Someone with trembling hands and a throat full of bile. Mom, have you seen my blue sweater? Emma's voice floated down from upstairs, yanking me back to reality. I slammed the laptop shut so hard it might have cracked. Check the laundry room, honey. My voice didn't shake. 14 years of motherhood had taught me how to lie convincingly when necessary. The timestamp on the photo showed it was taken 3 days ago, while Nathan was supposedly at a sales conference in Chicago. The woman was young, probably early 30s, with the kind of carefully curated Instagram-perfect appearance that made my stomach turn. The ring in Nathan's hand caught the light just right, probably worth 3 months of his salary, just like the one he'd given me 15 years ago. My phone buzzed. Nathan's face appeared on the screen, his weekly Thursday check-in right on schedule. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hey, how's Chicago? The words tasted like poison. Exhausting. Back-to-back meetings all day. Miss you guys though. His voice was warm, practiced. How many times had he fed me these lines? The kids miss you too. I opened my laptop again, staring at his face in the photo. The same smile he was probably wearing right now while lying to my face. When do you fly back? Saturday afternoon like we planned. Listen, I've got to run to another meeting. Give Emma and Lucas a kiss for me. Of course. I ended the call before he could say, I love you. Some lies I couldn't stomach hearing right now. The house felt different suddenly, like all our family photos were mocking me from their frames. 15 years of memories, each one now tainted with doubt. How long had this been going on? How many business trips weren't really business trips at all? My camera bag sat in the corner of my home office, filled with thousands of dollars worth of equipment I used to capture other people's perfect moments. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom! Lucas appeared in the doorway, my 11-year-old son clutching his math homework. Can you help me with these word problems? I forced a smile. Sure, buddy. Pull up a chair. As I helped Lucas work through his multiplication tables, my mind raced through the past few months. The new cologne, the gym membership, the late meetings and networking events. All the classic signs I'd been too trusting to question. My phone buzzed again, a text this time. Nathan had sent a photo of himself at what looked like a conference center, complete with a generic, "Wish you were here" message. The timestamp showed it was taken yesterday. My fingers hovered over the screen, tempted to send back the proposal photo with a simple, "Wish I was there too." But no, that would be too easy, too quick. Nathan had spent months, maybe years, crafting his perfect double life. His careful lies deserved an equally careful unraveling. Mom? Earth to Mom. Lucas waved his hand in front of my face. Is 7 times 8 56? Yes, sweetheart. That's exactly right. I squeezed his shoulder, suddenly fierce with protective love. Whatever happened next, I had to handle it carefully. Emma and Lucas didn't deserve to have their world shattered as brutally as mine had been. I reached for my phone again, scrolling through my contacts until I found Rick Davidson, private investigator. We'd worked together on a few corporate events where I'd been the photographer. He owed me a favor. It was time to start gathering evidence. Nathan thought he was the only one who could play this game. He was about to learn otherwise. Rick's office smelled like stale coffee and old paper. He hadn't changed since the last corporate event I'd photographed for him. Same worn leather chair. Same knowing smile that said he'd seen it all before. 2 phones, I said, sliding Nathan's phone bill across his desk. One's registered to his company, the other's personal. But there's a third number that keeps showing up on both bills. Rick picked up the papers, his eyes scanning the highlighted sections. How long has he been using separate phones? 6 months, maybe longer. That's as far back as I could access the records. My fingers drummed against the armrest, a nervous habit I couldn't shake. I need to know everything, Rick. Where he goes, who he meets, what lies he's telling. Surveillance isn't cheap, Brooke. I pulled out my camera bag. I've got 3 wedding shoots booked this month. I can pay. Emma's text lit up my phone. Dad's coming home early. Says he's bringing presents. My stomach clenched. Nathan wasn't due back until tomorrow. Another deviation from his carefully planned schedule. They were happening more frequently now. I need to go, I said, standing up. My husband's about to perform his returning hero act. Rick's expression softened. Be careful, Brooke. People who live double lives, they notice when things change. Don't tip your hand too early. I arrived home just as Nathan's car pulled into the driveway. He emerged carrying shopping bags, wearing a new suit I didn't recognize. The kids rushed out to greet him while I hung back, watching through my photographer's eye. The composition was perfect. Successful father, loving children, beautiful home. But the edges were blurring, reality bleeding through like overexposed film. Missed you guys too much to stay away, Nathan announced, hugging Emma and Lucas. He approached me with that familiar smile, the one I used to trust. And I missed you most of all. His kiss felt like betrayal. His new cologne mixed with something else. A floral scent that definitely wasn't mine. You're home early, I said, keeping my voice light. Everything okay at the conference? Wrapped up sooner than expected. He handed me a small box from one of the bags. Thought you might like this. Inside was an expensive camera lens, the exact model I'd mentioned wanting months ago. He'd been listening then, planning ahead, building his alibis with careful attention to detail. It's perfect, I lied, matching his performance. Thank you. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I watched Nathan unpack. New shirts carefully folded. A receipt for a restaurant I didn't recognize. His movements were practiced, efficient, a man used to compartmentalizing his life. The conference center looked nice in your photo, I said, testing the waters. Where was it again? The Marriott downtown. He didn't look up from his suitcase. Standard corporate setup. I thought of the proposal photo, definitely not taken at any Marriott. Must have been exhausting, all those meetings. You have no idea. He finally met my eyes, and for a moment I saw something flicker there. Guilt? Fear? I'm just glad to be home. My phone buzzed, a text from Rick. Meeting tomorrow. Found something interesting. Everything okay? Nathan asked, noticing my expression. Just work stuff. A client wanting to reschedule. The lies came easier now, flowing both ways in our marriage like poison in the groundwater. Emma appeared in the doorway, her artist's eye taking in the scene. Dad, your new suit looks expensive. Company's doing well, sweetheart. Thought I deserved a treat. I watched our daughter process this, saw the slight furrow in her brow. She was 14, old enough to sense when things didn't add up. I needed to move carefully, protect her and Lucas from whatever explosion was coming. Nathan's phone chimed, the other one, the one he thought I didn't know about. He glanced at it casually, but his shoulders tensed. Work never stops, he said with a forced laugh, stepping into the hallway to answer it. I met Emma's questioning gaze and managed a smile. Why don't you show me that new sketch you were working on? Tomorrow Rick would tell me exactly who was on the other end of that call. But tonight I had to keep playing my part in this fractured family portrait. The manila envelope sat between us on Rick's desk like a loaded gun. His expression told me everything before he even opened it. Olivia Reeves, he said, sliding out a series of photographs. 30 years old. Marketing director at Clayton Industries. She's been seeing Nathan for at least 18 months. Each photo was like a knife twist. Nathan and Olivia at restaurants I'd never been to. Holding hands in a park across town. Entering an apartment building I didn't recognize. The timestamps marched backward through months of betrayal. The apartment's in her name, Rick continued. But Nathan's been paying the rent through a shell company. He's not as careful with his digital footprint as he thinks. My hands didn't shake anymore when I looked at the evidence. That surprised me. The ring in the proposal photo? Purchased 3 weeks ago. Tiffany's. He used his business account. I thought of the camera lens he'd bought me. His guilt wrapped in expensive glass and metal. What else? Rick hesitated. There's something you should know about Clayton Industries. They're about to announce a merger with Nathan's company. He's been leading the negotiations. The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. She's not just his mistress. She's his ticket to a promotion. The merger goes public next month. The timing of the proposal makes everything look legitimate. I finished his thought. No one questions the executive marrying the marketing director after a merger. They just assume they met during negotiations. My phone buzzed, Emma asking if I'd be home for dinner. Nathan was cooking, apparently, playing the devoted husband while his carefully constructed new life took shape. There's more, Rick said quietly. Olivia's pregnant. 8 weeks. The room tilted sideways. I gripped the edge of Rick's desk, feeling the rough wood under my fingers, anchoring myself to something solid while my world spun apart. Does she know? My voice sounded distant. About me? About the kids? No. Nathan told her he's been separated for a year, living in a guest house on the property to help with the children's transition. Rick's disgust was evident. She thinks he's being noble. I gathered the photos, my photographer's eye noting the technical details to avoid processing the content. Good composition, natural light, clear focus on the betrayal. I need copies of everything, I said. And I need to know exactly when they're meeting next. Brooke. Rick's voice held a warning. Whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything yet. The lie came easily. I just need to know. At home, Nathan was in the kitchen teaching Lucas how to make pasta from scratch. Flour dusted his expensive shirt. Emma sat at the counter sketching the scene. The perfect family moment, staged by a master manipulator. There's my beautiful wife, Nathan smiled, coming over to kiss me. I turned my head slightly, making it land on my cheek. A small rebellion, but his slight frown told me he noticed. How was your shoot? He asked, returning to the pasta maker. Illuminating. I watched him roll the dough thinner. Actually, I've been thinking about expanding the business. Maybe doing some corporate work. Nathan's hands paused for a fraction of a second. Oh, Clayton Industries is looking for a new photographer for their annual report. Thought I might submit a portfolio. The pasta maker cranked to a stop. Nathan's knuckles whitened on the handle. That's ambitious, he said carefully. But maybe stick to what you know best? Wedding photography is your strength. Emma looked up from her sketch, her artist's eye catching the tension. I think Mom should go for it. Her corporate shots are amazing. Thanks, sweetie. I held Nathan's gaze. Sometimes it's good to step out of your comfort zone. Try something new. Don't you agree, honey? He forced a smile. We'll discuss it later. That night, I lay awake listening to Nathan's steady breathing beside me. 8 weeks pregnant. A new life growing while our old one crumbled. I thought about Olivia, probably lying awake too, dreaming of her future with a man who excelled at selling beautiful lies. My phone lit up with a text from Rick. Tomorrow. Lunch meeting at the Grove. 1 p.m. I turned off the phone and closed my eyes, already planning my next move. Nathan wasn't the only one who could play a long game. The Grove buzzed with the lunch crowd as I positioned myself at a corner table, camera in hand. Just another photographer working on her portfolio. The perfect cover for watching my husband meet his pregnant mistress. Jenna slid into the seat across from me, right on schedule. Are you sure about this? Keep your voice down. I adjusted my lens, framing the entrance. You're here to make this look like a business meeting, remember? Brooke. Her hand covered my camera. You're shaking. I was. The weight of Rick's latest revelation still pressed against my chest. This morning's manila envelope had contained bank statements showing Nathan had been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months. College funds, retirement savings, all quietly disappearing into offshore accounts. He's not just betraying me, I said, moving Jenna's hand away. He's stealing our children's future. The lunch crowd parted and there they were. Nathan in his tailored suit, Olivia in a cream dress that didn't quite hide her small bump. They looked like something out of a magazine spread. The successful executive and his beautiful young fiancée. Through my viewfinder, I watched them settle at their table. Nathan pulled out her chair just like he used to do for me. Their hands met across the table, wedding rings conspicuously absent. Emma asked me this morning if everything was okay between her father and me, I said, keeping my voice steady as I clicked the shutter. She's not sleeping well. Says the house feels different. Kids always know, Jenna murmured. Even when we think we're protecting them. Nathan leaned in close to Olivia, showing her something on his phone. Her face lit up with joy. Wedding venues, maybe. Or nursery designs. My camera captured it all. Evidence of happiness built on stolen dreams. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom, can we talk when you get home? It's important. I need to end this, I said, lowering the camera. Before Emma and Lucas get hurt even more. What are you thinking? I watched Nathan signal for the check, his other hand still entwined with Olivia's. The merger announcement is in 3 weeks. Nathan's planning to move out right after. Make it look like an amicable separation. How do you know? Because I found the lease agreement for his new place. Signed last week, starting next month. 3 bedrooms. Space for a nursery. Jenna's sharp intake of breath matched the twist in my gut. That son of a... But he doesn't know that I know about Clayton Industries, I continued, my voice hardening. Or about the pregnancy. Or the money. Brooke. Jenna's warning tone was back. The Clayton family is hosting their annual charity gala next weekend. Nathan will be there with his executive team, presenting the merger details to the board. And I just got hired as their event photographer. I smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Apparently, someone showed them my portfolio. Nathan and Olivia were standing now, preparing to leave. He helped her with her coat. Another familiar gesture twisted into something painful. You're going to expose them at the gala? Jenna asked, horror creeping into her voice. No. I packed away my camera, my movements precise and controlled. I'm going to give Nathan exactly what he wants. The perfect public image. The successful businessman. The devoted family man. I don't understand. The higher he climbs, the harder he'll fall. I stood up, watching my husband guide his pregnant mistress through the restaurant. And I'm going to make sure everyone is watching when he does. My phone buzzed again. Emma sending a follow-up text. Found something in Dad's office. Need to show you. The timing couldn't have been worse. Or better. Emma was already piecing things together. Maybe it was time to stop protecting her from the truth and start preparing her for what was coming. You know this will change everything, Jenna said softly. Once you start this, everything's already changed. I shouldered my camera bag, my decision crystallizing. Nathan just doesn't know it yet. Emma's discovery lay on my desk like a live grenade. A second phone, sleek and black, hidden behind Nathan's filing cabinet. She'd found it while looking for art supplies in his office. The screen was locked, but it didn't matter. I already knew what it contained. I didn't mean to snoop, Emma said, perched on the edge of my chair. But Dad's been acting weird, and I thought, you're not the one who did anything wrong. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, feeling her slight trembles. Thank you for showing me. The Clayton Industries gala invitation sat next to the phone, its gold embossing catching the afternoon light. 3 days away. Nathan had already announced he'd be working late that night, laying his alibis with practiced care. My phone buzzed. Rick's latest update. Olivia's parents confirmed for the gala. Board members too. Everyone who matters will be there. Mom. Emma's voice pulled me back. Are you and Dad getting divorced? The question hung between us, sharp as broken glass. Before I could answer, the front door opened. Nathan's footsteps in the hallway. Lucas's excited voice greeting him. We'll talk later, I whispered, squeezing Emma's hand. Everything's going to be okay. Nathan appeared in the doorway, his smile faltering slightly at finding us in his office. What's going on here? Emma's helping me prep for the Clayton shoot, I said smoothly, sliding the second phone under some papers. I wanted her artistic eye on some composition ideas. Right, the gala. He loosened his tie, watching us carefully. You know, maybe it's not the best timing. With everything going on at the company, everything's arranged. I stood, meeting his gaze. The Clayton family specifically requested me. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Did they? Mom's the best, Emma declared, her voice carrying a hint of challenge that made me proud and terrified at the same time. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my darkroom developing photos from the Grove. Nathan and Olivia's lunch meeting emerged in stark blacks and whites, their intimacy captured in chemical precision, evidence of betrayal floating in developer fluid. My phone lit up, Jenna checking in. Still going through with it? I studied the image of Nathan leaning in close to Olivia, his expression softer than any look he'd given me in months. The next photo showed them leaving together, his hand protective at her back. The final shot. Olivia touching her barely visible bump while Nathan smiled. My reply to Jenna was simple. Yes. The gala invitation seemed to pulse with possibility. Nathan thought he was orchestrating the perfect exit, the merger announcement first, then the carefully managed revelation of his new relationship. A clean break professionally packaged. But he didn't know about the USB drive I'd prepared, loaded with bank statements, phone records, and photos. Didn't know I'd already spoken to Clayton Industries board secretary, sharing concerns about financial irregularities I'd noticed while preparing for the event. Footsteps in the hallway made me freeze. Nathan's shadow paused outside the darkroom door. Working late. His voice carried through the barrier. Just finishing some proofs. I slipped the incriminating photos into a folder. Big event coming up. A long pause. Brooke, maybe we should talk. About what? Another pause. About the future. Changes coming up. My hand tightened on the folder. Sounds serious. It is. His shadow shifted. But not tonight. After the gala, okay? Everything will make more sense then. I thought of Emma's question about divorce, of Lucas's confused looks at dinner, of Olivia's growing bump and Nathan's secret phone. Yes, I said quietly. Everything will make sense after the gala. His footsteps retreated, leaving me alone with my photographs and plans. 3 days until the Clayton family's annual charity event. 3 days until Nathan's carefully constructed world shattered like a dropped lens. I touched the USB drive in my pocket, feeling its weight like a trigger waiting to be pulled. The time for hesitation was over. Nathan had chosen his path. Now I would choose mine. The Clayton Industries gala sparkled with wealth and pretense. Through my camera lens I captured it all, the forced smiles, the calculated handshakes, the subtle power plays disguised as small talk. Nathan worked the room like the master performer he was, his charm dialed up to maximum. I kept shooting, each click of the shutter marking time until the moment everything would change. Mrs. Harrison? A young assistant appeared at my elbow. Mr. Clayton requests your presence in the boardroom. Something about additional shots of the executive team. Perfect timing. I touched the USB drive in my camera bag, nodding. Of course. The boardroom doors opened to reveal Nathan at the head of the table, mid-presentation. Olivia sat to his right, her cream dress carefully arranged to hide her growing secret. The Clayton family occupied the other end, along with key board members. Ah, Brooke. Nathan's smile flickered slightly. We're just wrapping up the merger presentation. I raised my camera, moving around the room. Click. Nathan's hand brushing Olivia's shoulder. Click. The engagement ring she tried to hide. Click. The faces of people about to witness a carefully constructed life implode. Before we conclude, I said, lowering my camera, I have some additional materials the board should review. Nathan's expression shifted. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. I pulled out the USB drive, but before I could hand it over, the boardroom door burst open. Emma stood there breathless with Lucas right behind her. My heart stopped. Mom, wait. Emma's voice cracked. You can't do this. The room froze. Nathan's face drained of color. Olivia's hand moved protectively to her stomach. Emma, Lucas, you shouldn't be here. Nathan stood, trying to take control. How did you even? We followed Mom, Lucas said. We knew something was wrong. My carefully planned revenge crumbled as I watched my children's faces. They knew. They'd known all along. And now they were here to witness everything fall apart. Perhaps we should take a break, Mr. Clayton suggested, looking uncomfortable. No. Emma moved to stand between me and Nathan. Mom found Dad's other phone weeks ago. we've known about. She glanced at Olivia, who had tears streaming down her face. About everything. And we hate what Dad did, Lucas added, his small voice steady. But this isn't you, Mom. You're better than this. The USB drive felt like lead in my hand. All my evidence, all my righteous anger, suddenly seemed hollow under my children's clear-eyed judgment. They're right. Nathan's voice was quiet. I'm the one who should face the consequences. Not like this, not with some public spectacle that hurts everyone. Hurts everyone? I finally found my voice. You stole their college funds. You're having a baby with. What? Emma's head whipped toward Olivia. Lucas grabbed his sister's hand. The boardroom erupted in whispers. Olivia stood abruptly, knocking over her water glass. The sound of shattering glass matched the breaking of my resolve. I'm sorry, Olivia whispered, looking not at Nathan but at my children. I didn't know. He told me you knew, that you understood. Understanding requires honesty, Emma said, sounding far older than her 14 years. Something Dad forgot about. Mr. Clayton cleared his throat. Nathan, I believe we need to have a private conversation about your position with the company. I watched my revenge plan dissolve, replaced by something more powerful. My children's dignity in the face of betrayal. They'd chosen the higher ground I'd almost abandoned. The merger documents, Nathan said weakly. They're already are worth nothing compared to our reputation, Mr. Clayton finished. Brooke, thank you for bringing this to our attention, though perhaps not quite as planned. I nodded, gathering my camera bag. Emma and Lucas moved to flank me, their presence both a comfort and a rebuke. We should go home, I said quietly. As we left the boardroom, I heard Olivia's muffled sobs and Nathan's desperate attempts to salvage something. His job, his reputation, his lies. But none of it mattered anymore. My revenge had failed, but something more important had emerged from the wreckage. My children's unwavering moral compass, pointing toward a better way forward. Nathan stood in our driveway 3 days after the gala, loading boxes into his car. Emma watched from her bedroom window while Lucas sat on the front steps, methodically destroying dandelions with a stick. The morning light felt too bright, too exposing for this kind of ending. The Clayton board voted unanimously, Nathan said, closing his trunk. I'm officially unemployed. And unofficially? He flinched at my tone. Olivia's parents are helping us find a place. Until then, I'm staying at the Marriott. The real one this time? Lucas looked up at that, his stick pausing mid-swing. Nathan's jaw tightened. I never meant. To steal our children's college funds? To start a second family while destroying this one? Which part wasn't meant to happen, Nathan? Emma appeared in the doorway, her sketchbook clutched to her chest like armor. Dad? Are you taking any of my drawings? The question hit him like a physical blow. He glanced at the packed car, then back at our daughter. I didn't think. I can come back for. Don't bother. She ripped a page from her book, a family portrait from happier times, and held it out. This is the last one I'll ever draw of you. Nathan reached for the drawing, but Emma let it fall. The paper caught the morning breeze, skittering across the driveway like a wounded thing. Emma, please. You know what's weird? Lucas stood up suddenly. I kept thinking there must have been signs. Something we missed. But there weren't any, were there? You're just really good at lying. My son's words, delivered in his matter-of-fact voice, did what my anger couldn't. Nathan's carefully maintained facade cracked. I love you both, he said. That was never a lie. Love doesn't empty bank accounts, I said quietly. Love doesn't build a life on lies. The money. I can explain. Mr. Clayton already did. I pulled out an envelope. The board is pursuing legal action for financial misconduct. But they're willing to be lenient if you cooperate with the forensic audit. Nathan's face went ash gray. You don't understand. Olivia's pregnancy. The new house. We needed you. Emma's voice cracked. We needed our dad, not some stranger who wore his face and told pretty lies. Lucas moved to stand beside his sister, offering silent support. I watched my children, marveling at their strength, their unflinching honesty in the face of betrayal. The divorce papers are being drawn up, I said. The lawyers will contact you about the audit and custody arrangements. Custody? Nathan laughed bitterly. After what happened at the gala, you think any judge will? We get to choose, Lucas interrupted. Mom already talked to us about it. That's what happens when parents tell their kids the truth. A car pulled up to the curb. Olivia, her pregnancy now visible beneath a flowing dress. She stayed behind the wheel, unable or unwilling to face this scene. Your new family's waiting, Emma said, turning away. You should go. Nathan stood frozen between his packed car and our front door. A man caught between the ruins of one life and the uncertain promise of another. Finally, he bent down and picked up Emma's fallen drawing. I'm sorry, he said, though it wasn't clear who he was apologizing to. I never thought it would end like this. No, I agreed, watching him fold the drawing with trembling hands. You just thought you wouldn't get caught. He got into his car without another word. Olivia's vehicle pulled away first, and Nathan followed, leaving us standing in the debris of his choices. Emma's hand found mine. Lucas pressed against my other side. We stood there, watching until both cars disappeared around the corner. What happens now? Lucas asked. I looked at my children, hurt but unbroken, angry but unbowed. Now we rebuild. Together. Emma squeezed my hand. Without lies. Without lies. I promised, leading them back into our house, which already felt different, lighter somehow, as if truth had its own gravity, pulling us toward a new center. The divorce papers arrived on the same morning as the letter from Olivia's lawyer. I found Emma at the kitchen table, already reading the second document. She'd started checking the mail before me, hungry for news of how our story would end. She's suing him, Emma said, sliding the letter across the table. For fraud and emotional distress. Like mother, like mistress, I murmured, but the old bitterness had faded to something quieter. Lucas bounded in, fresh from soccer practice. Mom, can we hang my new photos in the darkroom? Coach says I've got a good eye. The darkroom had become our shared space, where Lucas learned to develop film and Emma sketched while I worked. The walls now held a growing gallery of our family's new shape. 3 people instead of 4, stronger at the broken places. Speaking of photos, Emma said carefully, Dad's baby shower invitation came. With pictures. My hand stilled on Lucas's camera. And I threw it away. She met my eyes. Some things we don't need to see. The doorbell rang. Jenna arriving for our weekly coffee. These days she brought contracts instead of consolation. My business had expanded since the Clayton Gala. My reputation for capturing uncomfortable truths attracting high-profile clients. You'll never guess who called, Jenna said, settling at the table. Olivia's lawyer. They want to hire you for the court documentation. Emma's head snapped up. Lucas stopped fiddling with his camera. That's... I searched for the right word. Poetic. It's perfect, Emma declared. Make him face his own reflection. The way you made him face ours, Lucas added. I studied my children, Emma's fierce certainty, Lucas's quiet strength. They taught me more about justice than revenge ever could. I'll take the job, I decided. But not for revenge. For what then? Jenna asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Rick. Nathan's trying to access the offshore accounts. Clayton's lawyers are moving to freeze everything. Mom. Emma's voice held a question. I showed them the message. No more secrets, that was our new rule. He's running, Lucas said, understanding immediately. Let him, I replied and meant it. We've got our own path to follow. Jenna raised an eyebrow. And Olivia's case? I'll document it honestly. Every frame, every moment. I touched my camera, thinking of all the ways truth could be captured and preserved. That's not revenge, it's justice. There's a difference. Emma pulled out her sketchbook. A new one filled with drawings of our reformed family. I've been thinking about that difference. Maybe revenge is about looking backward, but justice looks forward. Deep thoughts for breakfast, Lucas teased, but he was nodding. The morning light streamed through our kitchen window, catching the dust motes in its beam. Through my photographer's eye, I saw us as we were. Not broken but reconstituted. Not victims but survivors. I need to respond to Olivia's lawyer, I said, standing. Then we should finish hanging Lucas's photos. And my new sketches? Emma asked. Those too. I smiled. We've got plenty of wall space now. As I headed to my office, I heard Lucas ask Emma about her latest drawing project. Their voices followed me, warm and real and present. No pretense, no perfect family facade. Just truth, with all its sharp edges and unexpected beauty. My camera sat ready on my desk, next to the contract from Olivia's lawyer. I thought about Nathan, scrambling to salvage what he could of his carefully constructed lies. About Olivia, choosing truth over comfort. About my children, who'd shown me that the best revenge wasn't revenge at all. I picked up my pen to sign the contract, ready to document one more chapter of this story. Not for the satisfaction of watching Nathan fall, but for the simple power of letting truth speak through my lens. Sometimes justice was quiet. Sometimes it looked like nothing more than people choosing to face reality one frame at a time.
The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a loaded gun. No return address, just my name in precise block letters that seemed to dare me to look inside. I'd found it wedged in our front door when I got home from my shift at First National, and something about its weight made my stomach clench. I'm Hannah, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I understood my life. Funny how paper can weigh so much when it's carrying secrets. My fingers trembled as I spread the photographs across the granite countertop. Greg, my husband, standing in front of Davidson's farm supply with two men in expensive suits. Greg again, this time at the copper kettle, leaning in close to the same men. His face animated in that way it gets when he's pitching something to the city council. The timestamp showed Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. He was supposed to be at a budget meeting. The last photo knocked the air from my lungs. Greg shaking hands with Robert Chin, the developer who'd been trying to buy up farmland on the outskirts of town. My father's land. Hey, honey. Something smells amazing. Greg's voice boomed from the foyer, followed by the thud of his briefcase hitting the floor. I swept the photos into a drawer, my heart hammering against my ribs. Just heating up some leftovers, I called back, proud of how steady my voice sounded. He appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. That same blue tie he'd worn to Dad's last birthday dinner. You wouldn't believe the day I've had. The zoning commission is being impossible about the new development proposal. Which proposal would that be? I kept my eyes on the pasta sauce I was stirring, watching the red bubbles pop and burst like tiny accusations. Oh, you know, the usual stuff. Budget allocations, property assessments. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. His cologne, usually comforting, made me want to gag. Nothing you'd find interesting. I turned in his arms, studied his face. The same face I'd woken up to for 12 years. Dad's oncologist called today. Greg's expression shifted, concern replacing his easy smile. How's he doing? The treatment's not working as well as they hoped. They want to try something more aggressive. I watched his eyes, searching for any flicker of calculation. It's expensive. We'll figure something out, he said, but his arms had loosened their hold. Your dad's tough. He'll pull through. The phone rang, saving me from having to respond. Greg answered it in his study, his voice a low murmur through the wall. I pulled the photos back out, staring at the evidence of his betrayal until my vision blurred. My sister Megan's words from last week echoed in my head, something's off with Greg lately. The way he changed the subject when I mentioned Dad's farm. I defended him then. Told her she was imagining things, that Greg would never do anything to hurt our family. Now, holding proof of his lies in my trembling hands, I wondered what else I'd been blind to. The study door opened, and I shoved the photos away again. Greg emerged, his face carefully neutral. That was Robert Chin, he said, watching me. He wants to meet tomorrow to discuss some community development initiatives. Robert Chin, I repeated, tasting bile. The developer. You've heard of him. Here and there. I turned back to the stove, killing the heat under the sauce that had started to burn. Will you be meeting him at the copper kettle again? The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. When I looked back, Greg's smile had hardened into something I didn't recognize. How long have you known? He asked quietly. Long enough. I gripped the counter's edge, anchoring myself. Tell me you're not trying to sell my father's land while he's fighting for his life. Greg's laugh was hollow. It's complicated, Hannah. There are things you don't understand. Then help me understand, I said, but I already knew. The careful man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who could look me in the eye and plot against my family. Sometimes, he said, reaching for me, we have to make hard choices for the greater good. I stepped back, out of his reach. The distance between us felt like miles, and I knew with sudden clarity that it would only grow wider. Dad's oxygen tank wheezed in the guest room as I helped him unpack. His hands shook while folding his flannel shirts, but his eyes were sharp as ever when they met mine. You didn't have to do this, honey. I can manage at the farm. The lie sat between us like a third person in the room. We both knew he couldn't manage alone anymore, not with the cancer eating away at his strength. I tucked his medications into the bedside drawer, arranging them by schedule. The doctor said you need someone nearby. Besides, Greg and I want you here. Another lie. Greg had barely concealed his irritation when I'd announced Dad was moving in. But he couldn't exactly refuse without looking like the villain he was becoming. Speaking of Greg, Dad said, lowering himself onto the bed, he seems different lately. Distracted. I busied myself with hanging his coat in the closet. He's got a lot on his plate with work. Hannah. Just my name, but loaded with meaning. Dad had always been able to see through my deflections. What's really going on? The doorbell saved me from answering. Megan's voice carried up the stairs, followed by Eli's excited chatter. I squeezed Dad's shoulder. That'll be dinner. You ready to head down? Greg was already playing host in the dining room, pouring wine and laying on the charm. Sam, great to see you settled in, he said, helping Dad into his chair. We'll have you feeling better in no time. Eli bounced around the table, showing off his new soccer medal. Aunt Hannah, did you see? I scored the winning goal. That's amazing, buddy. I ruffled his hair, grateful for his innocent enthusiasm. Maybe you can teach your Uncle Greg some moves. He could use the exercise. Greg's laugh was pitch perfect, but his eyes flashed a warning. Always keeping me humble, aren't you, dear? Megan caught the undertone, her gaze darting between us. The food smells wonderful, Hannah. Need help bringing anything out? In the kitchen, she cornered me by the oven. Okay, spill. What's with the Arctic chill between you two? I pulled out the casserole, buying time. Did you know Robert Chen's been sniffing around Dad's property again? The developer. I thought Dad told him to take a hike months ago. He did. I lowered my voice. But apparently, Greg's been meeting with him behind our backs. Megan's sharp intake of breath matched the sick feeling in my gut. Are you sure? I have photos. The casserole dish clattered against the counter harder than intended. And when I confronted him, he fed me some line about the greater good. That snake. Megan's face flushed with anger. Does Dad know? Not yet. He's got enough to deal with. Back at the table, Greg was in full politician mode, regaling everyone with stories from City Hall. The development committee's really excited about some upcoming projects. Could bring a lot of jobs to the area. What kind of projects? Dad asked, pushing his food around his plate. Oh, various things. Retail spaces, maybe some mixed-use developments. Greg's smile never wavered. Actually, Sam, I'd love to get your thoughts on some proposals. Your experience with land management could be invaluable. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles went white. The audacity of him, trying to manipulate Dad while he was vulnerable. Uncle Greg, Eli piped up, is it true you're gonna build stores where Grandpa's farm is? The silence that followed was deafening. Greg's facade cracked for just a moment before he recovered. Where'd you hear that, sport? Tommy at school said his dad works for some guy named Shin, and they're gonna build a mall or something. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Is that true, Greg? It's just preliminary discussions, Greg said smoothly. Nothing's decided. But Sam, you have to think about the future. Medical bills aren't getting any cheaper, and the farm's just sitting there. Just sitting there. Dad's voice was quiet but steel-edged. That land's been in our family for 3 generations. My father's buried there. And we respect that, Greg said, reaching for his wine glass. But sometimes progress requires difficult choices. I stood up so abruptly my chair scraped against the floor. Progress? Is that what you call going behind our backs to sell out family? Mommy, Eli whispered, why is everyone mad? Megan pulled him close. Come on, sweetie. Let's go get dessert ready. As they left, Dad pushed himself up from the table, his breathing labored. I think I need to lie down. I moved to help him, but Greg got there first. Let me assist you, Sam. Don't touch me. Dad's words cut through the room like a blade. I may be dying, Greg, but I'm not dead yet. And that land isn't yours to sell. The bank statement spread across my desk told a story I wasn't prepared for. Greg's separate account, the one he thought I didn't know about, was hemorrhaging money. Large withdrawals, suspicious transfers, and a pattern of deposits from shell companies I'd never heard of. Working at First National had its advantages. Like knowing which tellers would look the other way when you accessed your husband's private records. My phone buzzed. Megan. You need to get to the hospital. Now. The drive was a blur of red lights and horn blasts. I found Dad in the emergency room, oxygen mask clouding with each labored breath. Megan paced nearby, her face drawn. What happened? Collapsed during his morning walk. Greg was supposed to be watching him. Her voice cracked. He said he had an emergency meeting. The same excuse he'd used yesterday, and the day before. I touched Dad's hand, his skin paper thin under my fingers. Where is Greg now? That's the thing. Megan lowered her voice. I drove by the copper kettle on my way here. His car was in the lot. With Chen's. Something snapped inside me. Stay with Dad. The restaurant was half empty when I walked in. Greg sat in a corner booth with Chen and 2 other men, papers spread between them. Their heads bent together like conspirators, which I suppose they were. Greg saw me first. The color drained from his face. Hannah. What are you? Dad's in the hospital. My voice carried across the quiet restaurant. But don't let that interrupt your meeting. Chen gathered the papers quickly, stuffing them into his briefcase. Mrs. Mitchell, we were just discussing the greater good. The words tasted like poison. Planning how to carve up my family's legacy while my father fights for his life. Greg stood, reaching for my arm. Let's discuss this at home. I jerked away. I saw your accounts, Greg. The withdrawals, the shell companies. What have you done? The other diners were staring now. Greg's political smile slipped into something uglier. You had no right to look at my private accounts. You had no right to sell my father's land behind our backs. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. But that's not all you've been hiding, is it? Want to explain these transfers to offshore accounts? Chen and his associates were already heading for the door. Greg's facade cracked completely. You don't understand. The campaign funds. There were expectations. Promises I had to keep. Campaign funds. The pieces clicked together. You've been embezzling money. Keep your voice down, he hissed. I can fix this. The development deal with Chin would cover everything. No one would ever know. Except my father would lose everything he's worked for. Your father is dying, Hannah. His words hit like physical blows. That land is worth nothing as a farm, but developed. It could save us all. Pay for his treatments, secure our future. Our future. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. There is no our anymore, Greg. You killed at the moment you decided to sacrifice my family to cover up your crimes. His expression shifted, something desperate creeping in. Think about what you're doing. If this gets out, I'll lose everything. My career, my freedom. Like I'm losing my father while you play deals with developers? I pulled out another phone, his backup that he thought I didn't know about, and held it up. Everything's here, isn't it? All your messages with Chen, the financial records, the bribes. Greg lunged for the phone. I stepped back, watching his careful mask shatter completely. You want revenge? He snarled. Fine. But remember, if I go down, you'll have nothing. No money for your father's treatments, no house, no future. Is that what you want? The restaurant had emptied around us, leaving only the weight of his threat hanging in the air. I thought of Dad in that hospital bed, of the family farm where we'd scattered Mom's ashes, of all the promises Greg had made and broken. What I want, I said quietly, is for you to feel exactly what my father feels right now. To watch everything you love slip away while you're powerless to stop it. I turned and walked out, Greg's pleas following me into the parking lot. My phone buzzed, Megan again. But for the first time since this nightmare began, my hands weren't shaking. I knew exactly what I had to do. The hospital bills arrived on the same morning Dad's latest test results came back. I spread them across my sister's kitchen table, the numbers blurring together like abstract art. Each page represented another piece of my father's life we were trying to buy back. We could sell the truck, Megan suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. We both knew it wouldn't be enough. Eli wandered in, still in his pajamas despite the late morning. Is Grandpa coming home soon? Come here, buddy. I pulled him close, breathing in the simple comfort of his presence. Grandpa needs to stay at the hospital a little longer. The doctors are helping him get stronger. Like Superman. His eyes brightened with hope. Something like that. The lie tasted bitter, but I forced a smile. Megan's phone buzzed. Her expression darkened as she read the message. Greg's calling an emergency city council meeting. Today. My stomach clenched. About what? The development proposal. He's pushing for a vote on rezoning Dad's land. The room tilted sideways. Greg knew Dad was too weak to attend, knew I'd be tied up at the hospital. He was making his move while we were vulnerable. I have to stop him. I stood up, gathering my things. Hannah, wait. Megan grabbed my arm. There's more. I heard from Sarah at the bank. Greg's been asking about taking out a second mortgage on your house. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. That house was my inheritance from Mom, the only thing I'd brought into our marriage that was truly mine. He can't, I whispered. Not without my signature. Megan's silence said everything. And Hannah. Eli's voice was small. Are you and Uncle Greg getting divorced? The question hung in the air like smoke. Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Greg. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house." I found him in his home office, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He looked older somehow, haunted. "The council meeting," I said. "Call it off." "I can't." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "The developers have a timeline. If we don't move now, they'll what? Find another piece of land to destroy. Another family to tear apart. Is that what you think I'm doing?" He finally looked up. "Everything I've done has been for us. For your father. Don't you dare." My voice shook. "Don't use Dad as an excuse for your crimes." "Then what's your solution?" He stood, anger breaking through his politician's mask. "How are we supposed to pay for his treatments? The experimental drugs he needs aren't covered by insurance. The farm barely breaks even. So you forge my signature. Try to steal my house." He flinched. "You weren't supposed to know about that." Like I wasn't supposed to know about the embezzlement. The bribes. I did what I had to do. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And now you have a choice to make." He slid a document across the desk. A contract, already filled out with Dad's name. "Sign it," Greg said. "Let Chen develop the land. The money would cover all of your father's treatments, with enough left over to set him up comfortably for whatever time he has left." My hand hovered over the paper. One signature and Dad could have the best care money could buy. One betrayal to prevent another. "And if I don't?" Greg's expression hardened. "Then I'll have no choice but to protect myself. Those financial records you found. They could implicate you too. A bank teller accessing private accounts, stealing confidential information. The thread hung between us like a blade. You'd destroy me to save yourself. I'd do whatever it takes to survive." His smile was a ghost of the one I'd fallen in love with. "Just like you're doing now." I picked up the pen, felt its weight in my hand. Thought of Dad in his hospital bed, of Eli's innocent questions, of Mom's house that had sheltered generations of our family. The pen snapped in my grip, ink staining my fingers like blood. "You're right about one thing," I said, turning toward the door. "I will do whatever it takes. But not to survive. To make you pay." His laughter followed me out, tinged with desperation. "You've got nothing, Hannah. No proof that would stand up in court." I touched the recorder in my pocket, still running. "We'll see about that." The small rental house smelled of dust and forgotten summers. I helped Dad settle into the worn armchair while Megan brought in the last of his medical equipment. His oxygen tank wheezed in rhythm with the ancient ceiling fan. "You shouldn't have to do this," Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Moving out of your own home. It's not my home anymore." I arranged his medications on the kitchen counter, organizing them by time and dosage. Not since Greg tried to steal it. My phone buzzed again, the 15th call from Greg today. I silenced it without looking. "There's something you need to see." Dad pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket, hands trembling. "Found it while packing." Inside was a letter, Mom's handwriting flowing across the yellowed paper. The date showed 2 weeks before she died. "I never gave it to you," Dad said. "Maybe I should have." The words blurred as I read, "My dearest Hannah, I know you'll face choices that tear at your heart. Remember that revenge is a poison that kills the soul before it reaches its target. Your strength isn't in your ability to hurt others, but in your capacity to protect what matters most." A knock at the door interrupted. Through the window, I saw Greg's car parked across the street. "Don't answer it," Megan said, but I was already moving. Greg stood on the porch, his politician's smile cracking at the edges. "You're making a mistake, Hannah." The council voted. "The development is happening whether you like it or not. Get off my property." "Your property?" He laughed, but there was something desperate in it. "You can't afford this place without me." "How long before Dad's medical bills eat through your savings?" "A month. 2. I recorded everything, Greg. The threats, the admission about the embezzlement. Inadmissible." His smile widened. "Recorded without consent. Besides, who do you think they'll believe? The respected councilman or the unstable wife who accessed private bank records illegally?" Behind me, Dad's coughing echoed through the house. Greg's eyes flickered toward the sound. "He doesn't have much time left," Greg said softly. "Let me help. One signature and all this goes away. Dad gets the best care money can buy. Like you helped Mom." The words escaped before I could stop them. Greg stepped back as if struck. "What are you talking about?" "The experimental treatment she wanted." My voice shook. "The one you said we couldn't afford. But you had money then too, didn't you? Hidden away for your precious political career." "That's not." "I found the accounts, Greg. The dates match. You let her die to protect your ambitions." The mask slipped completely. "Everything I did was for us. For our future. There is no us anymore." I pulled Mom's letter from my pocket. "Only the truth. And tomorrow, everyone's going to know it." "What truth?" His eyes narrowed. "Check your email. I sent copies of everything to every news outlet in the state. Bank records, recordings, proof of the bribes, everything." The color drained from his face. "You'll destroy yourself too." "Maybe." I thought of Mom's words about poison and protection. But sometimes the price is worth paying. He reached for me, but Megan appeared in the doorway. "Leave, Greg. Before I call the police." As he turned to go, Dad's voice carried from inside. "Greg." We all froze. Dad stood in the hallway, leaning heavily on his walker. "I wanted to tell you something." Dad's eyes were clear despite his labored breathing. "The land isn't just dirt and trees. It's where Sarah and I built our life. Where we scattered her ashes. You tried to sell not just property, but memories. Family. Love." He straightened slightly. "That's why you were never worthy of my daughter." Greg's facade crumbled completely. Without another word, he walked to his car and drove away. Inside, I found a second page to Mom's letter, one I hadn't noticed before. The last lines caught in my throat. "Whatever you choose, remember this, true strength lies not in standing alone, but in standing together. Your father and sister will need you, just as you'll need them. Let love guide your choices, not hate. It's the only way to keep your soul intact while fighting for what's right." I looked at Dad and Megan, both watching me with concern and love. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but tonight, in this dusty little house, I was exactly where I needed to be. The news vans circled our rental house like vultures. Through the window, I watched reporters clutching microphones in the rain, their faces hungry for scandal. Dad's medical equipment hummed in the background, marking time like a metronome. My phone lit up with another text from Megan, "Turn on channel 4. Now." Greg stood at a podium outside City Hall, his face drawn but composed. Behind him, Robert Chin smiled like a satisfied cat. "My wife's accusations are unfortunate," Greg said, his voice steady. "But they stem from a place of deep personal pain. Her father's illness, combined with her recent emotional instability." The remote cracked in my grip. "Furthermore," he continued, The alleged financial improprieties were actually attempts to secure additional funding for local healthcare initiatives, including cancer treatment programs. Everything I've done has been for this community. The camera panned to show supporters holding signs, "We stand with Greg" and "Progress over persecution." My phone buzzed again, the bank this time. My accounts were frozen pending investigation. Greg's preemptive strike had worked perfectly. "Hannah." Dad's voice was weaker today. "Someone's at the door." Through the peephole, I saw Sarah Chin, Robert's wife. She clutched an envelope, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I know what they did," she said when I opened the door. "To your mother. To others." The envelope contained medical records. Names, dates, treatments denied while money disappeared into offshore accounts. My mother's name jumped out from the list, along with dozens of others. "Robert's been working with Greg for years," Sarah whispered. "Using medical funding for their developments. I wanted to come forward before, but..." She touched her wedding ring. "I was a coward." A commotion erupted outside. Greg's car pulled up, surrounded by reporters. He stepped out, straightening his tie, that familiar political smile in place. "I've come to speak with my wife," he announced to the cameras. "To help her understand the truth." Sarah slipped away as Greg approached. He looked smaller somehow, despite his confident stride. "You're making this worse for yourself," he said when I opened the door. "The bank records. Inadmissible. The recordings. Illegal. But this vendetta against me. That's slander." "I know about Mom's treatment," I said. "About all of them." His smile flickered. "What are you talking about?" I held up Sarah's envelope. "The medical records. The diverted funds. Everything." For the first time, real fear crossed his face. "Where did you get those? Does it matter?" "It's over, Greg. All of it." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "Think about what you're doing. One phone call and I can make sure your father gets into that experimental treatment program. The one that could actually save him." The temptation hit like a physical blow. Behind me, Dad's oxygen tank wheezed. "You're still trying to manipulate me," I said. "Even now." "I'm trying to save you from yourself." His eyes softened. "Remember when we first met? You said you loved how I could always find a solution. Let me find one now." For a moment, I saw him as he used to be, the man who brought me coffee in bed, who held my hand at Mom's funeral, who promised to protect our family. Then Dad started coughing, the sound wet and painful, and the illusion shattered. "The only solution," I said, "is the truth." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth is, you'll lose everything. Your job, your reputation, maybe even your freedom. And for what? Revenge? Justice? There's no difference." He reached for the envelope. "Not in the real world." I stepped back into the house. "Maybe that's why you never understood me. Last chance, Hannah." His voice hardened. "Don't make me destroy you." Through the window, I could see the reporters watching, cameras ready. Beyond them, storm clouds gathered over the distant farmland, Mom's final resting place, Dad's legacy, our family's heart. "You already tried," I said, and closed the door on his face, on our marriage, on any last hope of an easy resolution. Inside, Dad's breathing had grown more labored. The medical records felt heavy in my hands, weighted with choices and consequences I couldn't yet see. Tomorrow would bring either justice or ruin. Tonight, watching Greg retreat to his car through the rain-streaked window, I wasn't sure I could tell the difference anymore. The state attorney's office smelled of leather and power. I sat across from Greg and his lawyer. Sarah Chen's documents spread between us like a minefield. Outside, reporters pressed against the windows, their cameras flashing like lightning. These records were obtained illegally, Greg's lawyer said, but his voice lacked conviction. Ask Sarah Chen about that. I met Greg's eyes. Your partner's wife has quite a conscience. Greg's carefully constructed facade cracked. Robert's wife. She gave you these. She's not the only one tired of watching people die while you play politics. The attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, given the circumstances, we're prepared to offer a deal. Your husband will support your father's medical treatment, fully funded, in exchange for no deals. I pushed a USB drive across the table. This contains everything. The diverted medical funds, the offshore accounts, the bribes. I'm not here to negotiate. Greg leaned forward. Think about what you're doing. If this goes public, everyone loses. The development project dies. The medical center closes. Is that what you want? I want the truth. The truth. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. The truth is I was trying to save us all. The town's dying, Hannah. The medical center's bleeding money. The development project would have funded everything, new treatments, research programs, jobs. By stealing from dying patients. From my mother. His face softened. Your mother. That was different. I made a mistake. I was young, scared of failing. The campaign needed money. She needed treatment. My voice cracked. She begged you to help her try the experimental program. I know. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. That's why I've been working so hard to make it right. The new medical center would have state-of-the-art facilities. No one would ever have to leave town for treatment again. The door opened. Megan stepped in, followed by a man in an FBI jacket. Greg's lawyer stood. This meeting is over. Actually, the FBI agent said, it's just beginning. Mrs. Chen has been very cooperative. Greg's composure shattered. Sarah's working with the FBI. Along with 3 members of the development committee. The agent placed a warrant on the table. They've provided quite a paper trail. You don't understand, Greg pleaded, looking at me. Everything I did was for us. For this town. For your father. My father taught me that integrity isn't negotiable. I stood, legs shaking. You could have come clean years ago. Could have told me the truth about Mom. Instead, you built lies upon lies until you couldn't tell the difference anymore. And you're so pure. His voice hardened. Using illegal recordings. Stealing bank records. You became exactly what you hated. The truth of his words stung, but I thought of Mom's letter. About poison and protection. Maybe you're right. I pulled out one final document. That's why I'm resigning from the bank. Turning myself in for accessing those records. The difference is, I'm choosing the truth. You're still running from it. Greg stared at me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time. You'd sacrifice everything. Your career. Your freedom. Some things are worth the price. The FBI agent stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, we need you to come with us. As they led him away, Greg stopped at the door. I did love you, Hannah. Maybe not enough to change, but I did. I know. The admission hurt more than I expected. That's what makes it tragic. Through the window, I watched them escort him to a waiting car. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Tomorrow's headlines would destroy the man I'd once loved, the life we'd built, the future we'd planned. Megan touched my arm. You okay? No. I thought of Dad waiting at home, of Mom's grave on the farmland. Of all the families who'd lost loved ones while Greg played God with their lives. But I will be. The medical center. The FBI agent says they'll freeze the development plans, investigate everything. Maybe something good can still come from this mess. Outside, storm clouds finally broke, rain washing away the last traces of the life I'd thought I knew. It felt, somehow, like cleansing. Spring wildflowers dotted the farmland, pushing through soil that had witnessed generations of my family's story. I stood at Mom's favorite spot, watching Eli plant sunflower seeds along the fence line. "These'll grow taller than me," he said, patting the earth with careful hands. "Just like the ones your grandma used to plant." I touched the weathered fence post, remembering Mom's garden parties. The way she'd made this land feel alive with possibility. The sound of tires on gravel announced Megan's arrival. She carried a stack of papers, her expression cautiously hopeful. "The board approved it. The land trust paperwork just needs your signature." The documents outlined our vision, a community wellness center built around the existing farmland. Gardens where patients could heal, spaces for experimental treatments, rooms where families could stay close to their loved ones during treatment. Everything Greg had promised, but built on truth instead of lies. "Have you read the letter?" Megan asked quietly. I touched the envelope in my pocket, Greg's final communication before starting his sentence. I'd carried it for days, unsure whether to open it. "Not yet. Maybe it's time." Dad's wheelchair creaked as he joined us, his breathing stronger since starting the new treatment program. The FBI's investigation had uncovered funds that were redistributed to the victims of Greg's schemes. A small justice, but meaningful. "Your mother would be proud," Dad said, watching Eli work. "Not of the revenge, maybe. But of what you're building from it." I unfolded Greg's letter, his familiar handwriting somehow both strange and intimate. "Hannah. I finally understand what you meant about truth being worth the price. In here, I've had time to count the cost of my choices. Not just in years served, but in trust destroyed and lives damaged. I was so focused on building a legacy that I forgot what really matters. I've arranged for my remaining assets to be transferred to the Wellness Center project. Anonymously, through a trust. Not for redemption, I know that's not possible, but because it's right. Because somewhere between ambition and fear, I lost sight of why I wanted to help people in the first place. You were stronger than me. You chose truth over safety, justice over comfort. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved. Greg." A breeze stirred the wildflowers, carrying the scent of fresh earth and new growth. Eli ran over, hands dirty from planting. "Look what I found." He held up a small metal box, rusted but intact. Inside was Mom's old garden journal, its pages filled with her dreams for the land. "She wanted to build something here too," Dad said, touching the weathered cover. "A place of healing. We will." I tucked Greg's letter away, letting it become part of the past. "But we'll do it right." The sound of construction equipment echoed from the far field where the Wellness Center's foundation was being laid. Sarah Chen had joined the project's board, turning her husband's testimony into something positive. Sometimes redemption comes from unexpected places. "And Hannah." Eli pointed to the horizon where storm clouds gathered. "Should we plant more seeds before the rain?" I looked at my family, Dad in his wheelchair but fighting, Megan with her quiet strength. Eli with his innocent wisdom, and felt something settle in my heart. The desire for revenge had brought me here, but love would build what came next. "Yes," I said, taking his small hand in mine. "Let's plant something new." The first drops of rain began to fall, not washing away the past but nourishing the future. I thought of Mom's letter about poison and protection, about Greg's final attempt at redemption, about all the ways justice and mercy tangle together. The land would tell a new story now. Not just of what was lost or taken, but of what could grow from broken ground. Sometimes the hardest truth is that healing doesn't look like we expect it to. Thunder rolled across the fields as we worked, planting seeds in the gathering storm. Each one a promise, a possibility, a choice to build rather than destroy. That's the thing about revenge, it shows you what you're willing to sacrifice. But love shows you what you're willing to build from the ashes it leaves behind.
The doorbell pierced the silence at 3 a.m, followed by 3 sharp knocks that echoed through my house like gunshots. I froze at my desk, spreadsheets forgotten, my hand hovering over the calculator. Nobody rings at this hour unless something's terribly wrong. I'm Ariana, and until tonight, I thought I had everything figured out. The knocking came again, more insistent. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood as I crept toward the door, phone clutched in my hand, 911 already typed but not sent. Through the peephole, I saw nothing but empty porch, the motion lights casting harsh shadows across my carefully tended flower beds. Hello? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence answered. I should have left it alone. Should have called the police or woken Michael. But something pulled me toward that door, call it instinct, call it fate, call it the universe's sick sense of humor. The bundle on my welcome mat was so small I almost missed it. A soft whimper drifted up, and my heart stopped. I yanked the door open, and there it was, a newborn, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, red-faced and squirming. Oh my God. The words escaped in a whisper as I scooped up the infant. Warm. Alive. Real. A folded paper fluttered to the ground, my name written in hurried strokes across the front. My hands shook as I unfolded it, cradling the baby against my chest. Dear Ariana, meet your husband's son, Evan. Born yesterday. I thought you should know what Michael's been up to while working late. Take care of him or don't, I'm done playing happy family with a coward who won't leave his wife. Olivia. The words blurred as I read them again and again, willing them to change, to make sense, to be anything but what they were. The baby, Evan, began to cry, a thin, reedy sound that cut through my shock like a knife. Mommy. Samantha's voice drifted down from upstairs. I heard noises. Go back to bed, sweetie, I called back, amazed at how normal I sounded. Everything's fine. Everything was not fine. Everything was so far from fine it had crossed into some bizarre parallel universe where my husband of 8 years had another family. Where some woman named Olivia had just dropped her newborn on my doorstep like an unwanted package. I carried Evan to the kitchen, moving on autopilot. Formula. We'd need formula. And diapers. And Michael's car pulled into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the windows. Of course. Of course he'd come home now, after his late-night assignment. I stood there, holding his secret in my arms, watching him through the window as he checked his phone, fixed his hair in the reflection. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen him so clearly. He used his key, whistling some tune I didn't recognize. The sound died when he saw me. You're still up. He smiled, that charming smile that had won me over all those years ago. Then his eyes landed on the bundle in my arms, and the color drained from his face. What's that? That? I looked down at Evan, who had fallen asleep, innocent and oblivious. This is your son. Olivia says hello, by the way. The silence that followed was absolute. In it, I could hear the sound of my marriage cracking, of trust shattering, of 8 years of memories being rewritten with ugly truth. Ari, I can explain. Can you? I met his eyes, surprised by how calm I felt. Can you explain why your mistress just abandoned your newborn son on our doorstep? Can you explain why you've been lying to me, to our daughter, to everyone?" He took a step forward. I took a step back. "Don't." My voice was ice. "Don't you dare come near us." Upstairs, Samantha's door creaked open again. Michael's eyes darted toward the sound, panic replacing the guilt on his face. "We can't do this now," he whispered urgently. "Let me explain everything tomorrow, when Sam's at school." I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I'd ever love someone so completely while knowing them so little. "You're right," I said softly. "We can't do this now. But tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do this in front of everyone." I spent the night cataloging lies. Each receipt Michael left in his coat pockets, every late meeting marked in his calendar. All those mysterious phone calls he'd step outside to take. The evidence of his betrayal stretched back months, maybe years. I'd been too busy running my business, raising our daughter, being the perfect wife, to notice the obvious. David arrived just after dawn, legal pad in hand. My brother, always the methodical one, always ready to fight my battles. He found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by paper trails and a sleeping Evan in the borrowed bassinet from our neighbor. "Jesus, Ari. When's the last time you slept? Sleep is for people whose husbands don't have secret families." I pushed Michael's credit card statements toward him. "Look at these charges. Jewelry stores, high-end restaurants I've never been to, hotel rooms." David picked up a receipt, his jaw tightening. The bastard wasn't even trying to hide it. Why would he? I trusted him completely. The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign, bitter. I was the perfect mark. Where is he now? Upstairs, pretending to sleep. He's too much of a coward to face me. I touched Evan's tiny hand, his fingers curling reflexively around mine. "Did you know he tried to convince me the baby wasn't his? Said Olivia must be lying, must be trying to extort money. And you believe otherwise? Look at him, David. He has Michael's eyes, his chin. Even his ears." My voice cracked. "He looks more like Michael than Samantha does." Heavy footsteps on the stairs made us both turn. Michael appeared in the doorway, dressed for work like it was any other morning. The sight of him in his pressed shirt and perfect tie made my stomach turn. "David." Michael's voice was carefully neutral. "This is a private matter between my wife and me." "Private?" I stood up slowly. "Like your private dinners with Olivia. Your private hotel rooms. Your private son." "Ari, please. You're not thinking clearly. Don't." David stepped between us. "Don't you dare try to gaslight my sister." Michael's facade cracked slightly. "I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But we can work through this. For Samantha's sake. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield." The words came out sharp enough to draw blood. "While you were playing house with your mistress, I found every receipt, every message, every lie. Would you like to explain the transfers from our joint account to an offshore bank? Or should I have David do some digging into that too?" The color drained from Michael's face. "What transfers?" "The ones you thought I wouldn't notice because I trusted you to handle the finances." I slid another paper across the table. $200,000, Michael. "Where is it?" "Mommy." Samantha's small voice made us all freeze. She stood on the stairs in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Why is everyone yelling?" Michael moved toward her. "Everything's fine, princess. Don't." My voice was steel. "Don't you dare lie to her too." I turned to my daughter, softening my tone. "Sweetie, go pack your favorite toys. We're going to stay at Uncle David's for a while." But what about school? I'll drive you, just like always. I managed a smile. Go on now. When she disappeared upstairs, Michael grabbed my arm. You can't take my daughter. David's hand clamped down on Michael's wrist. Remove your hand, or I'll remove it for you. The baby started crying, a sharp wail that cut through the tension. I pulled away from Michael to lift Evan, who quieted immediately in my arms. Look at that, I said softly. He already knows who he can trust. I met Michael's eyes. You have until noon to pack your things and leave. After that, I'm calling the police and reporting the financial fraud. Your choice. You wouldn't. The woman you married wouldn't. But I'm not her anymore. I turned to David. Can you help Samantha pack while I get Evan ready? Ari, please, Michael's voice cracked. I'll do anything. I looked at him one last time, this stranger wearing my husband's face. You already did everything. That's the problem. The sound of his desperate pleas followed me up the stairs, but for the first time since last night, I felt something other than pain. Something that felt dangerously like purpose. Finding Olivia wasn't difficult. A quick search through Michael's phone, left behind in his hasty departure, led me to the Grand Hotel downtown. Of course he'd keep her somewhere expensive, somewhere that matched his inflated sense of importance. I adjusted my blazer, checking my reflection in the elevator's polished doors. Power suit, perfect makeup, wedding ring conspicuously absent. The woman staring back at me looked dangerous. Good. Room 742. I knocked once, sharp and professional. Room service, I called out, my voice honey-sweet. The door opened, and there she was, younger than I'd imagined, beautiful in that calculated way that takes effort. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something like amusement. Well, Olivia said, leaning against the doorframe. I wondered when you'd show up. May I come in? Unless you'd prefer to discuss Michael's embezzlement in the hallway. That wiped the smile off her face. She stepped aside, and I entered what had to be a $500 a night suite. My money. Our money. Where's my son? She tried to sound demanding, but fear edged her words. Safe. Which is more than I can say for his father's future. I settled into an armchair, crossing my legs. Tell me, how long did it take you to realize Michael wasn't the golden ticket you thought he was? I don't know what you're talking about. No. I pulled out my phone, started reading. Olivia Brooks, formerly Olivia Martinez. 2 previous relationships with married executives. Both ended in generous settlements after threatened lawsuits. You're getting predictable. She sank onto the couch, mask cracking. You've been investigating me. Did you really think I wouldn't? The moment you dropped Evan on my doorstep, you made this my business. I leaned forward. But here's what fascinates me, you miscalculated this time. Michael isn't wealthy. I am. He said he had money. That he was going to leave you. The money he showed you. That was stolen from my company. Which means those offshore accounts you thought would be your safety net. They're about to be frozen. Color drained from her face. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. I'm sure Michael's already trying to reach you, warning you that everything's falling apart. I watched her grab her phone. Saw her face change as she read the messages. He's not coming to save you, Olivia. He's running. This isn't, I never meant. She looked up, suddenly younger, more vulnerable. I just wanted security. For me and Evan. By destroying another woman's family. By abandoning your newborn. My voice stayed level, but my hands shook. You want to know what real security looks like? It's building something yourself, not stealing it from others. What are you going to do? I stood, smoothing my skirt. Nothing. I'm going to walk out that door and let karma do its job. The police are already investigating the embezzlement. Michael's journalist credentials are being reviewed. Your previous activities are becoming public knowledge. You bitch. She launched to her feet. You think you're so perfect. Michael told me everything about you. How cold you are, how focused on your precious business. And yet here I am, raising your son while you hide in a hotel room. I moved to the door, then paused. Oh, and Olivia. The room's been charged to your personal card. Seems Michael canceled his before he fled. Her scream of rage followed me into the hallway. I made it to my car before the trembling overtook me, before the tears started falling. My phone buzzed, a message from David. Police just picked up Michael at the airport. He had a ticket to the Cayman Islands. I started laughing, the sound bordering on hysterical. Of course he'd run. Of course he'd leave Olivia holding the bag, just like he'd left me holding his son. Another message came through, this one from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started. Oh. I saved the number, smiling through my tears. Let her threaten. Let her scheme. She had no idea what I was capable of, what lengths I would go to protect what was mine. And now, somehow, that included her abandoned son. Game on, I whispered, starting the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Olivia watching from her window, 7 stories up, looking small and desperate and dangerous. Just like Michael, she'd learn. Nobody hurts my family without consequences. Lucas agreed to meet me at a coffee shop across town, far from his usual haunts with Michael. He arrived late, shadows under his eyes, fidgeting with his wedding ring, a nervous tell I remembered from countless dinner parties. You look terrible, I said, pushing a coffee toward him. Yeah, well, finding out your best friend's a fraud will do that. He pulled out a USB drive, placed it between us like a loaded gun. What I found. Ari, it's worse than embezzlement. My fingers curled around my cup. Tell me. Michael's been writing hit pieces on your competitors. Taking bribes to tank their reputations while promoting businesses that pay him under the table. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes. The money trail leads back to your company's accounts. He's been using your success to make his schemes look legitimate. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. How long have you known? I suspected something was off 6 months ago. The lifestyle changes, the stories that didn't add up. He finally looked at me. I should have told you sooner. Yes, you should have. I kept my voice level, even as rage burned through my veins. What changed your mind? Olivia came to see me yesterday. Wanted me to help her blackmail Michael. He laughed, hollow and tired. Said she had evidence that could destroy both of you. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. My phone buzzed. A text from David, police want to question you about company finances. Call me ASAP. Of course. Michael had made sure his tracks led back to me. The articles, I said slowly. They're under my company's letterhead, aren't they? Lucas nodded. You're listed as the primary source. Michael made it look like you were orchestrating everything. Perfect. I stood up, gathering my coat. Thank you, Lucas. You've been very helpful. That's it. Ari, you could go to prison. No, I cut him off. I won't. Because you're going to help me prove who really wrote those articles. How? I smiled, and something in my expression made him lean back. Because you're going to wear a wire and meet with Michael. He trusts you. He'll confess. He's my best friend. Was your best friend. I leaned forward, dropping my voice. Choose carefully, Lucas. Right now, you're either a witness or an accomplice. Which would you prefer? His hand shook as he reached for his coffee. When? Today. He's desperate, running out of options. He'll talk. I stood up. Oh, and Lucas. If you warn him, remember, I have copies of all your communications about those articles. Every email, every text. You're not who I thought you were. No. I'm who Michael and Olivia made me. I gathered my things, pausing beside him. 3 o'clock. David will meet you with the wire. Don't be late. Outside, I checked my phone again. 3 missed calls from my mother, a text from Samantha's teacher about her being withdrawn at school. And an email from my company's board requesting an emergency meeting. My perfectly constructed life was unraveling, threads pulling loose with every revelation. But beneath the chaos, a strange calm had settled over me. Michael hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd tried to destroy everything I'd built, everything I was. Another text came through, this one from Olivia, last chance to negotiate. Tomorrow's headlines will be interesting. I saved the message with the others, evidence mounting like ammunition. Let them think they had me cornered. Let them believe I was desperate. They had no idea what I was capable of. My phone rang again, David this time. The police are at your office, he said without preamble. They're seizing computers. Good, I replied, starting my car. Let them find everything Michael left behind. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Ari. Are you sure about this? I thought about Michael's schemes, Olivia's threats, Lucas's belated conscience. About Samantha's confusion and Evan's innocence. About 8 years of love twisted into a weapon against me. Yes, I said, pulling into traffic. It's time everyone learned what happens when you try to bury someone who knows how to grow. The recording of Michael's confession played through my office speakers, his voice filling the room like poison. Lucas had done his job well, too well. Every damning word, every scheme, every betrayal laid bare in high-definition audio. I had to protect us, Michael was saying to Lucas. Ariana was too focused on her precious company to see what was happening. The competitors were closing in. I did what I had to do. I stopped the playback, my hand steady as I poured another drink. David sat across from me, legal pad covered in notes, while Lucas paced by the window. It's enough to clear you, David said. But it'll destroy the company anyway. I finished my drink. The scandal alone will tank our stock. I'm sorry, Ari. Lucas stopped pacing. If I'd known sooner. The door burst open. Michael stood there, wild-eyed, clutching his phone. You set me up. Hello, darling. I didn't move from my desk. Heard from Olivia lately. You bitch. He advanced into the room. You turned Lucas against me. Convinced him to tell the truth. I stood slowly. That must be an alien concept for you. Everything I did was for us. To protect what we built. What I built. My voice cut through his excuses like a blade. My company. My reputation. My life that you tried to destroy. He laughed, a harsh sound. Your life. What about our daughter? What about Evan? Don't you dare bring them into this. Why not? You're using my son as a weapon against me. Keeping him from his father. His father. The glass shattered in my hand, but I barely felt it. You abandoned him on my doorstep like garbage. You left him with a stranger because you were too much of a coward to face what you'd done. Blood dripped from my palm onto the carpet. David moved toward me, but I waved him off. Olivia's going public, Michael said. Tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the city will know how you orchestrated everything. The bribes, the hit pieces, all of it. Let her. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a thick file. But first, she might want to see these. His face paled as I spread photos across the desk. Olivia with other married men, bank statements showing her previous settlements, medical records revealing her calculated pregnancies. You weren't special, Michael. You were just next in line. I met his eyes. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? That I wouldn't find every skeleton in her closet? You don't understand. She'll destroy everything. No, you don't understand. I moved around the desk. I already destroyed everything. I leaked the story an hour ago. Every detail, every scheme, every lie, it's all public now. Your career is over. Your reputation is finished. And Olivia? I smiled. The police are probably arriving at her hotel right now. He lunged for me. David and Lucas grabbed him, but not before he knocked me back against the desk. Pain shot through my cut hand as I caught myself. You've ruined everything, he shouted, struggling against their grip. No, Michael. You did that yourself. I straightened, ignoring the blood now staining my white blouse. The difference is, I'm going to rebuild. You? You're going to watch everything you tried to steal crumble around you. What about Samantha? What will she think when she learns what you've done? The question hit harder than his physical attack. She'll learn that her mother fought back. That sometimes justice looks like revenge. Security's on their way up, David said, still restraining Michael. I looked at my husband, this stranger wearing 8 years of lies like a second skin, and felt something final settle in my chest. Goodbye, Michael. I gathered the files, my voice steady. Give Olivia my regards when you see her in court. His threats followed me out of the office, but they held no power anymore. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with news alerts about the breaking scandal. By morning, everyone would know the truth. I touched the wedding ring I still wore, then slowly slid it off. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, patient and precise, until everything falls perfectly into place. The news vans surrounded my house like vultures, their satellite dishes pointed at my windows like accusing fingers. Inside, Samantha clutched Evan to her chest, both children sleeping through the chaos while my mother paced the living room. They're saying horrible things about you on TV, Nancy said, muting another breaking news segment about my company's scandal. That woman, Olivia, she's giving interviews, claiming you threatened her, that you stole her baby. My phone buzzed. Another message from the board, effective immediately, you are suspended pending investigation. Let her talk. I watched another camera crew set up on my lawn. The truth will come out. The truth. Nancy stopped pacing. Ariana, they're freezing your accounts. The police want to question you about kidnapping. Michael's lawyer is filing for emergency custody of both children. My hands shook as I poured another coffee I wouldn't drink. Through the window, I could see reporters interviewing my neighbors, probably asking about the mysterious baby that appeared on my doorstep. About Michael's affair, about my supposed manipulation of the media. David burst through the door, suit disheveled. We have a problem. Olivia's pressing charges. She claims you orchestrated everything, the affairs, the financial fraud, even abandoning Evan, to frame Michael and destroy his career. That's ridiculous. It's working. He dropped a stack of papers on the coffee table. She has emails, texts, voice recordings, all doctored, but convincing. She's painting you as an obsessive wife who couldn't handle Michael's success, who manufactured evidence to destroy him. My coffee cup slipped, shattering on the floor. Samantha stirred at the noise, and Evan began to cry. Give him to me, I whispered, taking the baby. He quieted immediately, his tiny hand wrapping around my finger. How could anyone believe I'd orchestrate his abandonment? Mommy. Samantha's voice was small. Are the bad people going to take Evan away? I held both children closer, breathing in their innocent scent. No, sweetheart. No one's taking either of you anywhere. My phone rang. Lucas. Turn on channel 7. Now. The screen flickered to life, showing Michael and Olivia together at a press conference. She looked perfectly distressed, tears streaming down her face as she described how I'd threatened her, forced her to give up her baby. Manipulated evidence to frame them both. I just want my son back, she sobbed into the microphones. I was scared. Ariana said she'd destroy me if I didn't do what she wanted. Michael played his part perfectly, the concerned father protecting his mistress, his voice thick with rehearsed emotion. We just want what's best for both children. Ariana needs help. Her obsession with destroying me has gone too far. Turn it off, I whispered, but nobody moved. And the offshore accounts? A reporter asked. The fraudulent articles. All traced back to Ariana's IP address, Michael said smoothly. She used my journalism contacts, my reputation, to orchestrate everything. I was blind to it, trying to protect her, until it was too late. The room spun. Everything I'd gathered, every piece of evidence, every careful plan, they'd turned it all against me. Made me the villain in my own story. We need to get you out of here, David said urgently. They'll be serving the arrest warrant soon. We can fight this, but not if you're in jail. No. I stood, still holding both children. I'm not running. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. Ariana. They want to paint me as unstable. Fine. Let them try. But I'm not leaving my children. I'm not hiding from their lies. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Through the window, I could see police cars approaching, reporters running toward them with cameras raised. Mom, I said quietly, take the children upstairs. They don't need to see this. As Nancy led them away, Samantha looked back at me with those wise eyes. Are you going to fight the bad people, Mommy? Yes, baby. I squared my shoulders as red and blue lights flooded the room. I'm going to fight them all. The pounding on the door began, accompanied by shouts of police. Open up. I looked at David, at my mother, at the life I'd built crumbling around me. Sometimes, I said softly, you have to lose everything to win anything at all. The courtroom fell silent as Olivia took the stand, her designer outfit and perfectly timed tears a masterclass in manipulation. I sat between David and Lucas, watching her perform for the judge, my hands steady despite everything at stake. Miss Brooks, David approached, his voice deceptively gentle. Could you explain these documents? The papers appeared on the overhead screen, bank statements, hotel receipts, text messages. Olivia's practiced composure flickered. Those are private. They show a pattern, don't they? 6 different married men over 3 years. 6 relationships that ended in threatened lawsuits and generous settlements. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat as David continued. And this medical record from 3 months ago, it indicates you weren't pregnant when you claimed to be carrying Mr. Reed's child. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Olivia's lawyer jumped up with objections, but I barely heard him. I was watching her face, seeing the mask crack. That's not, those records are fake. Like the baby you claimed was yours. David's voice hardened. The DNA test results came back this morning, Miss Brooks. Evan isn't your child. He isn't Michael's either. The gallery exploded. Michael stood up, face ashen. What are you talking about? Evan belongs to Thomas Harrison, David continued, displaying another document. A wealthy businessman you targeted last year. The same man who disappeared mysteriously after refusing to pay your blackmail demands. Olivia's composure shattered. You don't understand, I needed to destroy my family. I stood, unable to stay silent. To use an innocent child as a weapon. Order. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. You think you've won. Olivia's mask fell completely, revealing something ugly beneath. Michael still chose me. He still betrayed you, abandoned his daughter. No, Michael interrupted, his voice breaking. You said, you promised. What? She whirled on him. That I loved you. That we'd be together. You were a means to an end, Michael. Just like all the others. The truth exploded between them like shrapnel, wounding everyone in its path. Michael staggered back, 8 years of lies finally catching up to him. Your Honor, David's voice cut through the chaos, we have evidence that Miss Brooks orchestrated the financial fraud at Mitchell Enterprises. Using Mr. Reed's position to manipulate company records. The offshore accounts trace back to her previous aliases. The screen filled with transaction records, each one damning. I watched Olivia realize she'd been outplayed, that every move she'd made had been anticipated, documented, turned against her. You're just like me, she hissed at me. Using people, manipulating events. No. I met her eyes. I protected my family. You destroyed yours. The doors burst open. 2 police officers entered, followed by a man I recognized from the case files, Thomas Harrison, very much alive and ready to testify. Olivia lunged for her purse. Lucas moved faster, knocking it away. Photos spilled across the floor, dozens of them, showing her with different men, different lives, different lies. Miss Brooks, the judge's voice was iron, you are hereby remanded into custody pending charges of fraud, extortion, and kidnapping. As the officers approached, she turned to Michael one last time. Tell them. Tell them you knew about everything, that you helped me. But Michael was already talking to the district attorney, making a deal, saving himself like always. I watched them lead her away, this woman who'd tried to steal my life. She'd wanted revenge against the world that had denied her what she thought she deserved. Instead, she'd gotten justice, the real kind, the kind that comes from truth. Mom. Samantha's voice came from behind me. I turned to find her with my mother, Evan sleeping peacefully in Nancy's arms. It's over, baby. I pulled her close, breathing in her innocent scent. The bad people can't hurt us anymore. What about Daddy? I watched Michael being led away by his lawyer, his shoulders bowed under the weight of his choices. Daddy made mistakes. But you'll always have me. And Evan? Yes, I said softly, taking the baby from my mother. And Evan. We're going to be okay. The truth tasted like victory, like justice, like peace. The adoption papers sat on my desk like a promise. Thomas Harrison had signed away his rights to Evan without hesitation, grateful for the evidence that had exposed Olivia's schemes. One signature from me would make it official, would make us a family in the eyes of the law. Though we'd been one in truth since that night on my doorstep. My pen hovered over the line. Still thinking about Michael? Nancy asked, watching me from the doorway. No. I signed my name with steady strokes. Thinking about karma. How sometimes what looks like revenge is really just the universe setting things right. Through the window, I could see Samantha in the garden, showing Evan a butterfly while David pushed them on the swing set. My daughter had grown older in these past weeks, but stronger too. Like me. The board reinstated you, Nancy said, setting down the morning paper. The headline read, Mitchell Enterprises CEO cleared of all charges. They didn't have a choice. The truth has a way of demanding attention. And Michael took a plea deal. Minimal jail time in exchange for testimony against Olivia's other victims. I closed the adoption file. He'll never work in journalism again. Does that feel like justice? I watched my children playing, thinking about revenge and redemption, about how thin the line between them really was. It feels like freedom. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood outside, holding a familiar box. Found these while cleaning out Michael's desk at the paper. Old photos spilled across my desk, wedding pictures, family vacations, moments that had seemed perfect until I learned to look closer. In each one, Michael's smile held a shadow I hadn't noticed before. You know what's strange? I gathered the photos, dropping them in the shredder one by one. I don't feel angry anymore. Just awake. Awake? Like I've been sleeping through my own life, seeing what I wanted to see. The last photo disappeared into the shredder. Not anymore. Samantha's laughter floated through the window, pure, unguarded joy. Evan's baby giggles joined in, a harmony I never knew I needed. The investigators found more of Olivia's victims, Lucas said quietly. They're building a class action suit. Want you to testify? No. I stood, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. I'm done looking backward. Mommy. Samantha burst in, holding Evan carefully like I'd taught her. Can we have ice cream for lunch? Uncle David said to ask you. I took Evan, breathing in his baby scent. He grabbed my necklace, not my wedding ring, which now lived in a safety deposit box as evidence, with perfect infant precision. Ice cream comes after real food, I said, but found myself smiling. Even when Uncle David suggests otherwise. Worth a try, David called from the hallway. My mother touched my arm. You did good, baby. Not just surviving, thriving. We all did. I looked around at my strange, beautiful, chosen family. At the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you thought it would be. Sometimes it's better. The afternoon sun painted shadows across my desk, across the adoption papers that made official what my heart had known since that first night. Across the future stretching out before us, uncertain but ours. Come on, I said, shifting Evan to my hip. Let's go make lunch. Real food first, then ice cream. And stories? Samantha asked, taking my free hand. Yes. I squeezed her fingers gently. But maybe some new ones this time. We left the study together, leaving behind the shredded photos, the old memories, the ghosts of what might have been. Outside, the garden waited with its butterflies and possibilities. With its promises of growth after destruction, of beauty after pain. Sometimes revenge looks like justice. Sometimes justice looks like moving forward. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they both look like love.
The letter arrived on a Tuesday, typed in crisp Times New Roman, each word a precise little dagger aimed at my heart. I read it 3 times before the meaning fully sank in, my fingers trembling against the expensive cotton paper. Story time approaches. But first, where are you tuning in from today? Let us know in the comments. If you're new and love stories, that subscribe button is waiting. Shall we begin? My name is Ruth, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I was living a modern fairy tale. Small-town librarian meets successful city banker, falls in love, gets engaged. But fairy tales don't usually include future mothers-in-law plotting to destroy their son's engagement. She's nothing but a social climber, the anonymous letter quoted Margaret Harrison saying. I'll make sure Tom sees sense before he ruins his life with that small-town nobody. I set the letter down on my kitchen counter, right next to the wedding magazine I'd been browsing earlier. The contrast was almost funny, all those perfect white dresses and smiling brides next to words dripping with such calculated venom. My phone buzzed. Tom's face lit up the screen, his smile warm and familiar. I let it ring. What was I supposed to say? Hey, honey, your mother's plotting to destroy our relationship? Ruth. My mother's voice carried through the open window from the backyard. The roses need trimming. Want to help? Not now, Mom. My voice cracked slightly. I heard her footsteps approaching the back door. She appeared in the doorway, pruning shears in hand, dirt smudged on her gardening apron. One look at my face and she set the shears down. What's wrong? I handed her the letter. Her eyes narrowed as she read. Her mouth settling into a thin line I recognized from my childhood, the expression she wore when dealing with particularly difficult parents at school. Well, she said finally, I can't say I'm entirely surprised. What do you mean? Margaret Harrison has been giving you the snake eye since day one. Remember that charity auction? The way she introduced you as Tom's friend even though you'd been engaged for 3 months? The memory stung. I'd written it off as forgetfulness, but now. What am I going to do? The question is, Mom said, settling into a kitchen chair, what do you want to do? The answer came surprisingly quick. I want to fight back. Ruth. No, Mom. I'm tired of pretending I don't notice the snide comments. The way she acts like I'm somehow not good enough for her precious family. I grabbed my phone as it buzzed again, another call from Tom. I'm going to prove her wrong. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I thought about Margaret's perfectly curated dinner parties, her carefully maintained image, her iron grip on her family's social standing. By finding out what she's hiding. Nobody's that perfect. You might not like what you find, Mom warned. And Tom needs to know who his mother really is. I picked up the letter again. She's having dinner with the Blakes tonight. I think it's time I paid Eleanor Blake a visit. Tom's grandmother? The one who never leaves her estate? The very same. I grabbed my car keys. She's the only one who knows all the Harrison family secrets. And I bet she'd love to share them with her future granddaughter-in-law. Mom stood up, concern etched on her face. Just remember, revenge has a way of hurting everyone involved. Including you. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. I'm not looking for revenge, Mom. I'm looking for justice. But as I walked to my car, the letter burning a hole in my pocket, I wondered if there was really any difference between the two. Tom's name flashed on my phone screen again, and this time, I answered. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk. The Harrison mansion loomed before me like a challenge, all gleaming windows and manicured hedges. Tom squeezed my hand as we walked up the granite steps, but I barely felt it. The anonymous letter felt like it was burning through my purse, each step bringing me closer to its author. Margaret opened the door herself, perfect in pearls and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Thomas, darling. She air-kissed his cheek, then turned to me. Ruth. That's an interesting dress choice. I smoothed down my carefully selected cocktail dress, remembering the 4 stores I'd visited to find something suitable. Thank you, Margaret. The color reminded me of the roses in your garden. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, do come in. Edward's already in the dining room. The house smelled of money and old secrets, leather-bound books, polished silver, and whatever expensive thing was being served for dinner. Edward stood as we entered, his quiet "Hello, Ruth" somehow warmer than his wife's entire greeting. I hear congratulations are in order, Margaret said as we settled around the massive dining table. The library received some sort of grant? Yes, I replied, noting how she made it sound like a consolation prize. We're expanding our children's literacy program. How quaint. Though I suppose that's important in Areas like yours. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Mother. More wine? Edward interrupted, reaching for the bottle. I noticed his hand trembled slightly. The first course arrived, something delicate involving seafood that I barely tasted. Margaret dominated the conversation, dropping names of people I'd never meet and places I'd never visit. But I was watching her, really watching her for the first time. The way her eyes darted to Edward whenever certain names came up. The slight tightening of her fingers around her wine glass when Tom mentioned our wedding plans. Actually, Margaret said, setting down her fork, I've been meaning to discuss the wedding. The Blakes' country house would be perfect for the reception. Eleanor's quite fond of you, Thomas, Anne. We've already booked the venue, I cut in. The old botanical gardens near my parents' house. Margaret's smile turned brittle. Oh, but surely you'd prefer somewhere more appropriate? The Blakes' property has hosted 3 governors' weddings. The gardens are perfect, Tom said firmly. Ruth and I both love it there. Love isn't everything, darling. Margaret's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. Sometimes we must consider what's best for the family's future. I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment away from her perfectly aimed barbs. In the hallway, I heard voices from behind a partially closed door, Margaret's study. No, it has to be handled carefully. Margaret's voice, sharp and clear. The girl's smarter than she looks. Yes, I know what's at stake. The merger depends on someone's coming. I'll call you back. I hurried past just as she emerged, our eyes meeting in a moment of perfect understanding. She knew I'd heard, and I knew she knew. Lost? Her smile was pure ice. Just heading back to dinner. I matched her tone. Wouldn't want to miss any of your helpful suggestions. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of subtle jabs and loaded silences. Tom grew increasingly tense, while Edward seemed to shrink into himself. When we finally left, Margaret's goodbye was almost triumphant. In the car, Tom turned to me. I'm sorry about Mother. She's just protective. Protective? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tom, she's actively trying to stop our wedding. There's something bigger going on here, something about a merger? What merger? Ruth, you're not making sense. But I was making perfect sense. For the first time, everything was becoming clear. Margaret's opposition wasn't just about my social status, there was something else, something worth destroying her son's happiness over. I pulled out my phone and typed Eleanor Blake into the search bar. If Margaret wanted to play games, fine. But she'd forgotten something important: librarians know how to research. And I was just getting started. Eleanor Blake's estate made the Harrison mansion look modest. I sat across from her in a sunroom larger than my entire apartment, watching as she stirred honey into her tea with a silver spoon that probably cost more than my car. Margaret always was ambitious, Eleanor said, her voice carrying decades of carefully cultivated refinement. But you didn't drive all the way out here to discuss my daughter-in-law's personality, did you? No. I placed the newspaper clipping on the table between us. I came to ask about this. Eleanor's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the yellowed paper. The headline read, Blake Industries merger scandal, former secretary claims fraud. Where did you find this? Library archives. The secretary who made the allegations was Margaret Harrison. Before she married Edward. Eleanor set down her teacup with a sharp clink. That was 35 years ago. The article mentions evidence that could have destroyed Blake Industries. Evidence that mysteriously disappeared right after Margaret married Edward. You've done your homework. Eleanor's smile held a hint of approval. But what does ancient history have to do with your current situation? Yesterday, I overheard Margaret talking about another merger. One that apparently depends on stopping my wedding to Tom. Eleanor's expression shifted, something dark passing behind her eyes. The Whitmore deal. What? Thomas hasn't told you? The Whitmores are trying to acquire Harrison Financial. They have a daughter about Thomas's age. Very suitable match, in Margaret's opinion. My stomach churned. Tom wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. That's why Margaret's getting desperate. Eleanor reached for an ornate bell on the side table. Jenkins, bring me the blue folder from my study. While we waited, Eleanor studied me with unnerving intensity. You remind me of Margaret, you know. Before she learned to value position over principle. The butler returned with a leather folder. Eleanor removed several documents, spreading them across the table. The evidence Margaret claimed to have? It never disappeared. I've kept it all these years, insurance against exactly this sort of situation. My hands shook as I read. Bank statements, letters, forged documents, everything that proved the original Blake-Harrison merger was built on fraud. Why are you showing me this? Because Margaret's about to sacrifice her son's happiness to protect her position. Again. Eleanor's voice hardened. History doesn't just repeat itself, my dear. It's forced to repeat by people who refuse to learn from it. My phone buzzed, a text from Tom, "Where are you?" Mother's called an emergency family meeting. Go, Eleanor said, gathering the documents. But remember, weapons only work if you're willing to use them. I drove to the Harrison house in a daze, the implications of Eleanor's revelations spinning through my mind. The family was already gathered in the living room when I arrived. Margaret stood by the fireplace, triumph written across her face. Ruth, how nice of you to join us. Her smile was razor sharp. I was just explaining to Thomas about the Whitmore opportunity. How it could secure his future, our family's future. By having him marry someone else? The words came out before I could stop them. Tom stood up. What? The merger depends on it, doesn't it, Margaret? I met her gaze steadily. Just like the Blake merger 35 years ago? The color drained from Margaret's face. Edward looked up sharply. I don't know what you're talking about, Margaret said, but her voice wavered. I think you do. And so does Eleanor. The room went silent. Tom looked between us, confusion giving way to understanding. Mother, what is she talking about? Margaret's composure cracked. Everything I did for this family. No, I said quietly. You did it for yourself. And now you're trying to do it again. I reached for my phone, pulling up the photos I'd taken of Eleanor's documents. Should I share these with everyone? Or should we discuss how this ends differently this time? Margaret's hands gripped the mantelpiece, her knuckles white. The choice hung in the air between us, her past or her son's future. And in her eyes, I saw she knew exactly which one I'd choose. The documents from Eleanor's folder lay scattered across my kitchen table like landmines. Tom stood by the window, his silence heavier than any argument we could have had. Outside, rain pelted against the glass, matching my thundering pulse. You went behind my back. His voice was quiet, controlled. To my grandmother. Your mother went behind both our backs. I touched one of the papers, proof of Margaret's past deceptions. She's trying to marry you off to someone else. That's not the point, Ruth. He turned, and I barely recognized the expression on his face. You're turning into her. The accusation hit like a physical blow. I'm nothing like Margaret. Really? Secret meetings, digging up dirt, using people's past against them? He picked up one of Eleanor's documents. What exactly was your plan here? To protect us. By destroying my family? My carefully constructed justifications crumbled. In the harsh light of Tom's disappointment, I saw what I'd become, someone who'd let revenge mask itself as righteousness. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the front window, I saw Edward Harrison's car in my driveway. Tom opened the door. Edward stood there, soaked from the rain, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "May I come in?" I gathered the documents quickly, but Edward waved them away. "I know what those are. I've always known." "Then why didn't you ever say anything?" Tom demanded. "Because I loved her." Edward sank into a kitchen chair. "And because I was a coward." "Still am, probably. But I can't watch her do to you what she did to us." "What do you mean?" "The Whitmore merger isn't just about business, Tom. It's about Margaret's revenge against Eleanor. The Whitmores were involved in the original scandal, they helped cover it up. If this merger goes through, it'll protect everyone involved. Everyone except Eleanor." My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret, "We need to talk." "Alone." "She's trying to divide us," Tom said, reading over my shoulder. "No." I stood up. "She's offering me a choice. Ruth. I need to see this through." I grabbed my car keys. But not the way I planned. Tom caught my arm. "What are you going to do?" I thought about Eleanor's words about weapons, about Margaret's desperate grip on her perfect life. About how easily I'd let myself become what I claimed to hate. "I'm going to give her what she never gave anyone else," I said. "A chance to choose differently." Edward spoke up. "Margaret doesn't believe in second chances." "Maybe not. But I still do." I touched Tom's face. "That's the difference between us." The drive to the Harrison mansion felt like crossing a boundary. Margaret waited in her study, perfectly composed except for the slight tremor in her hands as she poured 2 glasses of wine. "I assume you've come to negotiate," she said, offering me a glass. I didn't take it. "No. I came to tell you I'm not using Eleanor's documents." Surprise flickered across her face. "Why?" "Because I don't want to win that way." I met her gaze steadily. "But I'm not backing down either. Tom deserves to choose his own path. Just like you deserved to choose yours 35 years ago. You know nothing about my choices. I know you were like me once. Before you decided status was worth more than happiness." I moved toward the door. "The difference is, I'm choosing differently. And if I don't back down?" I paused, hand on the doorknob. "Then you'll lose Tom anyway. But this time, it'll be your choice, not mine." Walking away from Margaret's study felt like emerging from a dark room into sunlight. Tom waited in my driveway when I got home, and the way he looked at me told me I'd made the right choice. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't won by fighting, but by refusing to become what we're fighting against. The annual Harrison family gathering felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. I watched from the edge of the grand ballroom as Margaret worked the crowd, her laugh carrying across the room with practiced ease. The Whitmores were here too, their daughter Claire hovering near Tom with predatory grace. Eleanor caught my eye from her corner seat, raising her glass slightly. The documents she'd given me felt heavy in my clutch, though I'd promised myself I wouldn't use them. Quite the turnout. Edward appeared beside me, his bow tie slightly askew. "Margaret's outdone herself." "Is that what we're calling it?" He flinched at my tone. "Ruth, about the merger." "Don't." I watched as Claire touched Tom's arm, laughing at something he'd said. "You had 35 years to speak up. And you have 30 seconds before Margaret makes her announcement." My head snapped toward him. "What announcement?" But Margaret was already clinking her glass, drawing everyone's attention. Tom's eyes found mine across the room, a warning in them I couldn't quite read. "Family, friends," Margaret's voice carried effortlessly. We're gathered not just for our annual celebration, but for a special announcement. Harrison Financial and Whitmore Industries are joining forces. Polite applause. I felt the trap closing. And to cement this union, Margaret continued, we're thrilled to announce the engagement of Thomas Harrison to Claire Whitmore. The room erupted in congratulations. Tom stood frozen, his face pale. Claire beamed, already moving to take his arm. He hasn't agreed, I said to Edward. He doesn't have to. The contracts were signed this morning. If he refuses, both companies face bankruptcy. The documents in my clutch suddenly felt like a lifeline instead of a burden. One move and I could burn it all down, Margaret's reputation, the merger, everything. Don't. Eleanor's voice behind me was soft, but firm. That's exactly what she wants. To prove you're no different from her. Then what am I supposed to do? Let her win? You're asking the wrong question. Eleanor's eyes were sharp. Ask yourself why she's so desperate to stop you. I looked around the room, at Margaret's triumphant smile, at Edward's defeated posture, at Tom's barely contained fury. Then I saw it. The slight tremor in Margaret's hand as she raised her glass. The way her eyes kept darting to the Whitmores. The desperate edge to her perfect performance. She wasn't trying to stop my wedding. She was trying to save herself. I moved through the crowd toward Tom, aware of every eye tracking my progress. Claire stepped closer to him, practically marking her territory. Thomas, Margaret called out, perhaps you'd like to say a few words about your engagement? The room went quiet. Tom looked at me, then at his mother, then at the expectant faces surrounding us. I saw the weight of family legacy crushing him, just as it had crushed Edward all those years ago. I reached into my clutch, fingers brushing Eleanor's documents. One move would expose everything, the fraud, the lies, the decades of manipulation. Justice, revenge, whatever you wanted to call it, was right there. Instead, I pulled out my engagement ring. Actually, I said, my voice carrying in the silence, I have something to say. Margaret's smile froze. Eleanor leaned forward in her chair. Tom watched me with a mixture of fear and hope. I held up the ring, letting it catch the light. This ring belonged to my grandmother. She was a housekeeper for a family like yours. They treated her like she was nothing. But she taught me something important, our worth isn't in who we marry or what we own. It's in the choices we make. I turned to Margaret. You made your choice 35 years ago. Now it's Tom's turn. The silence that followed was absolute. In that moment, watching Margaret's carefully constructed world balance on a knife's edge, I realized something important. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemy's world. It's in refusing to play their game at all. The silence after my speech lasted exactly 3 seconds before Margaret's laugh cut through it like a knife. How touching. But perhaps we should discuss what's really at stake here. She pulled out her own envelope, and my stomach dropped. I recognized Eleanor's handwriting on the front. Mother, Tom warned, stepping forward. No, Thomas. It's time everyone knew exactly who they're dealing with. Margaret's voice carried across the ballroom. Did Ruth tell you how she obtained evidence about our family? How she conspired with Eleanor to blackmail us? The crowd murmured. Claire Whitmore's triumphant smile made my skin crawl. That's not what happened, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. No? Margaret opened the envelope. Then explain these emails between you and Eleanor, plotting to expose the merger's history. Plotting to destroy not just my reputation, but the livelihoods of hundreds of employees who depend on both companies. Tom turned to me, his expression unreadable. Is this true? I never intended, the words stuck in my throat as I watched Margaret produce printout after printout. Of course you didn't intend, Margaret's voice dripped with false sympathy. Just like you didn't intend to use my past against me. To exploit an old woman's bitterness for your own gain. Eleanor stood up shakily. That's enough, Margaret. Is it? Because I have more. About Ruth's midnight visits to your house, about the documents she copied without permission. About her plans to reveal everything at this very gathering. Each word was a nail in my coffin. I watched as the room turned against me, saw the doubt creep into even Edward's sympathetic gaze. Ruth. Tom's voice cracked slightly. Tell me you didn't do this. But I had done it. All of it. The investigation, the secret meetings, the planned exposure, everything except the final reveal. And now Margaret had turned my own weapon against me, making me look exactly like what I'd accused her of being. A manipulative social climber willing to destroy a family for personal gain. I was trying to protect us, I whispered. By becoming exactly what you claimed to hate? Tom's words echoed my own thoughts from days ago. Claire slipped her arm through Tom's. I think we all know what this is really about. A small-town girl who couldn't handle the fact that she didn't belong. I looked around the room, at the faces that had turned from curious to condemning, at Eleanor's defeated posture, at Edward's averted gaze. Even the servants seemed to be avoiding eye contact. Tom, I reached for him, but he stepped back. I think, Margaret said quietly, it would be best if you left. The walk to the door felt endless. Each step echoed against the marble floor, accompanied by whispers and judgmental stares. I'd come here planning to expose Margaret's true nature, but instead, I'd revealed my own. At the doorway, I turned back one last time. Tom stood frozen between his mother and Claire, looking lost and betrayed. Margaret's victory was complete, she'd managed to make me destroy myself without lifting a finger. Congratulations, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You win. Oh, Ruth, Margaret smiled sadly. I won the moment you decided to play my game. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. My phone buzzed, a message from Eleanor, I'm sorry. She found my phone. She knew we were meeting. Another buzz, Tom, I need time. A final message from Margaret, the invitation to the wedding will be in the mail. Do be a dear and don't attend. I sat in my car, staring at the Harrison mansion glowing warmly against the dark sky. Everything I'd fought against, everything I'd tried to prevent, had happened anyway. And worse, I'd proven Margaret right about me all along. The engine started with a quiet purr. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of movement in an upstairs window, Edward, watching me leave. In that moment, I finally understood him completely. Sometimes the price of fighting monsters isn't that you become one. It's that you realize you were capable of being one all along. The wedding invitation arrived exactly as Margaret promised. I stared at the cream-colored envelope for a long moment before reaching for my car keys instead. 3 weeks of silence was enough. The Whitmore mansion blazed with pre-wedding celebration lights. I parked across the street, watching the shadows of guests moving behind gauzy curtains. Then I saw her, Margaret, slipping out onto the balcony alone, a champagne flute in her trembling hand. Security was laughably easy to bypass. Years of library work had taught me every building had its service entrances, its quiet corners, its forgotten paths. Enjoying your victory? I stepped out of the shadows onto the balcony. Margaret didn't turn around. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. I moved beside her, looking out over the manicured gardens. The Whitmores are going to find out eventually. About the fraud, about Eleanor's evidence, all of it. They already know. Her laugh was hollow. They've always known. Why do you think they insisted on this marriage? The pieces clicked into place. They're blackmailing you. Welcome to high society, dear. She drained her glass. Where everyone knows everyone else's secrets, and we all pretend not to notice the knives in our backs. Then why fight so hard to stay in it? Because the alternative is becoming nothing. Her voice cracked. Like I was before. Like you are now. The door behind us opened. Tom stood there, his bow tie askew, Claire's lipstick on his collar. The sight hit harder than I expected. Ruth. His voice was barely a whisper. Don't worry, I said. I'm not here to stop your wedding. Then why are you here? Margaret turned finally, her perfect mask slipping. To show you something. I pulled up my phone, opened the email I'd received that morning. The library board approved my proposal. We're starting a foundation for adult education. First-generation college students, single parents, people looking for second chances. Margaret's eyes narrowed. And I'm naming it after you. The champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble. Tom took a step forward, but I continued. The Margaret Harrison Second Chance Foundation. For people who want to change their lives without losing themselves. Like you could have, 35 years ago. You're mocking me. No. I'm offering you what you never offered anyone else, a way out that doesn't require destruction. The balcony fell silent except for the distant sounds of the party. Tom looked between us, understanding dawning in his eyes. The merger, he said slowly. The Whitmores, they're using something from your past? Margaret's hands gripped the balcony rail. Thomas. Tell him, I said quietly. Or I will. But this time, it won't be about revenge. It'll be about truth. She broke. The whole story spilled out, her humble beginnings, the original fraud, the years of covering it up. With each word, her perfect posture crumbled until she was just a woman, tired of carrying decades of lies. Tom listened silently, his face unreadable. When she finished, he looked at me. You knew all this? And you didn't use it? I learned from the best, I met Margaret's gaze, what happens when you let revenge consume you. The party music swelled inside, Claire's laugh carrying through the glass doors. Tom straightened his bow tie with trembling fingers. I have to go back in, he said. They're expecting. No. Margaret's voice was firm. No more expectations. No more perfect lies. She turned to me. Your foundation, does it need a board member? Mother? Tom's surprise mirrored my own. The Whitmores can't blackmail me with a past I'm not hiding anymore. She smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. Besides, I have some experience with second chances now. I left them there, mother and son, their shadows merging in the balcony light. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a text from Tom, wait for me? Sometimes the greatest victories come not from winning the game, but from changing its rules entirely. The Margaret Harrison Second Chance Foundation opened on a crisp autumn morning. I watched from the podium as Margaret cut the ribbon, her hands steady, her smile genuine. The crowd, a mix of society figures and future students, applauded politely, uncertain how to react to this new version of Margaret Harrison. Ready for the tour? I asked as the crowd dispersed. She ran her hand along the brass nameplate. It's smaller than I expected. We start small. Grow authentically. I led her through the converted warehouse. Like you could have, if you'd had the chance. Students were already filling the classrooms, their voices echoing through halls still smelling of fresh paint. A woman about Margaret's age sat in the front row of the computer literacy class, her work-worn hands hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. Margaret paused in the doorway. That could have been me. It still can be. I handed her a course catalog. The board position includes mandatory participation in at least one class. Her laugh was surprised, genuine. Clever girl. In the main office, Edward was hanging pictures, not of society galas or corporate mergers, but of real moments. Margaret's first day as a secretary. Eleanor's childhood home. The small church where Margaret and Edward had originally planned to marry before society expectations changed everything. The Whitmores sent this. Margaret handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, a substantial one, and a note for second chances. They're not as powerful without secrets to hold over people, I observed. No, she agreed. None of us are. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows as we reached the library, my pride and joy. Tom was there, shelving books alongside my father. They'd been working together lately, Tom learning carpentry, Dad learning to trust again. The Foundation's first donation, Margaret said, pulling a book from her bag. Her old secretary handbook, pages dog-eared and marked. For those who want to learn how to climb without falling. I placed it on the shelf marked New Beginnings. You know, Margaret said quietly, I spent so long trying to bury that scared young secretary, I forgot she was the strongest part of me. She still is. I touched the handbook's worn spine. Strong enough to start over. Eleanor arrived as we were closing up, leaning on her cane but standing straighter than I'd ever seen her. Well, this is certainly not what I expected when I gave you those documents. No, I agreed. It's better. The four of us, Eleanor, Margaret, Tom, and I, stood in the fading light of the library. Not quite whole, not quite healed, but something new taking shape. The board meets Tuesday mornings, I told Margaret. Business casual dress code. She smoothed her designer suit. I'll have to go shopping. I know a great thrift store, Eleanor offered, and for once, there was no barb in the suggestion. Tom slipped his hand into mine as they left, Margaret and Eleanor walking together, their shadows long in the setting sun. Think it'll work? He asked. I watched Margaret stop to help a student struggling with the door, saw the natural grace in the gesture. I think we all deserve the chance to try. We locked up together, the keys heavy in my hand. Through the window, I could see the Foundation's motto etched in gold, every ending is a beginning in disguise. The anonymous letter that started everything still sat in my desk drawer. I took it out now, reading those angry words that had nearly driven me to destroy rather than create. Then I dropped it in the recycling bin. Some might call this a happy ending. But standing there in our imperfect creation, watching Margaret Harrison learn to be real instead of perfect, I realized it wasn't an ending at all. It was just the first step on a longer road, one where justice looked like growth instead of vengeance. Where victory meant changing hearts instead of breaking them, and where the hardest person to offer a second chance to is often yourself.